Welcome to episode 66 of Coffee and Co-Read, your source for all things literary, with Kristen
and Catherine, where we believe there is nothing better than hot coffee and an awesome book. Join us for our virtual book club, where we take one book a month and dive into all the drama, adventure, and romance we can find. Hey, Kristen.
Hi, Catherine.
So we're starting a new book today.
I'm the most excited.
Yes, and it is part of your favorite series, so that's super exciting.
Yeah.
So we're starting A Court of Wings and Ruin. So this is the third book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. And I know when I read it, I thought that this was the end. Like, I didn't think that Sarah J. Maas was going to write anything else, really.
Right.
Like, obviously, you never know what's going to happen. Like, maybe she'll do a novella, I thought. And then she did a novella, and I was like, cool. But I really didn't think that we were going to get as much more as it seems like we're going to get. But so much happens in this book, and I kind of forgot, like, how much happened until I started reading this week, and I was like, holy shit.
There's a lot to talk about. Like, and I, even having read the book several times, I'm like, okay, what's important? What can I, like, not discuss? And, like, it's so hard to cherry pick stuff because so much of it is important.
Yes. And the other thing with it being, like, we know there are more books in this series. Like, the most recent one was Silver Flames. So there's going to be an Elaine story at some point as well. So we know that we don't have the full story. So we don't know, like, when we do Throne Glass, the series is basically complete. We can figure out, like, what is important because we know what happens later.
Is going to happen, yeah.
Unless that gets thrown into the mix, who knows? But if that happens, then you can just ignore our first, like, two books because maybe we don't know anything. But, like, with this one, you're like, they talk about Elaine, and you're like, is that important because it's Elaine? Because we don't know anything about her anything in her head yet. Like, we don't have anything in her perspective. Yeah, so it's hard.
Yeah, it's very hard. And, like, I don't know, it's just you fall in love with the character so much that you want to talk about their development. You want to be like, oh my God, look at this ballsy thing that they did. Mm-hmm. Like, is it relevant? Maybe not, but you still want to talk about it because it's just like, I need to talk about this because it was such a good moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And sometimes when I'm, like, reading the book and I, like, have to pick which moments to talk about, I'm like, if I listened to a podcast and they didn't bring this up, I'd be like, how can you not talk about this? But then when you're actually doing a podcast about it and you're like, I don't want it to be 15 hours for one episode, it's hard.
And we're still looking at that, right? Like, we might get there.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I don't know what this month is going to be like. There's 5 episodes, and they might be 3 hours each. Maybe we'll have 15 hours on this. We don't know yet.
Yeah. It's because this, I think, because, you know, like, we do have our notes set up and ready to go. And I think, notes-wise, this was my longest so far.
Yeah. Mine's not my longest, but it is definitely up there for sure.
Yeah. And, like, while I would like to think that we get more succinct with time, like, I'm hoping that our note-taking skills get better the further, like, the more podcasts we do. I honestly don't think that's the case. If anything, I think I'm getting worse. Like, I want to get into more details.
Oh, interesting. Because I was doing my notes today to finish, like, this week off. And I was thinking, damn, I'm getting good at this. Which is funny, because I honestly think that I am getting better at it than I used to be. So.
Yeah, I just find that, like, not that I was okay skipping over a lot of stuff in the early months of our podcast. And now I just feel like there are so many things that I want to talk about.
Yeah, but that could also be like this book. This book makes it hard too.
Maybe. I did notice a little bit with Neon Gods last month as well.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So
good to know.
We apologize if in advance if this is like 10 hours long.
If this one episode is 10 hours long, I'm like, it is 9 p.m. I cannot be up here for 10 hours. So I guess we should probably just get into it because it might be 10 hours.
Yeah.
And just a heads up, we're not a spoiler-free zone, and things might get saucy. And they do a tiny bit.
Yes. Do we get a little sauce this week?
We do get a little sauce this week. I love a bit of sauce. At the very, very end.
Ooh, and we stick around for the sauce.
We get some sauciness in the beginning, in the, like, acting.
Oh, yes.
Way. Yeah. Like,
yes, yeah.
Oh, my fucking favorite. So much happens this week. It's actually wild.
And can I just say, too, that, like, normally when I read this book, I actually skip over this bit because I don't like, not that I dislike it, but, like, I want to get straight into Feyre Reese together again.
Yeah.
So I skip it, and then when I reread it for, like, note-taking, I was like, I actually really like it. Like,
yeah.
I don't hate I don't hate it.
I love it. I'm like, this is every woman's, like, fantasy of getting back at that one guy in your life that was a Tamlin.
An asshole. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm here for it. And I can't wait to talk about how awesome Feyre is.
I know. It like blows my mind. And it's kind of like if you've read Throne of Glass, like it's very much a very smart female character who is so calculating and like you're like, damn, how did she do this? And I fucking love it. I love when they do that. It's my favorite.
I know, me too. And it's like, the only thing though is I know I would never be able to do it because like I've said before, I'm terrible at chess. I would never be able to think like 12 moves ahead.
No, I also would probably just punch him in the face. Like I wouldn't be able to like, I wouldn't be able to not show the disgust on my face. I would just be like a cold hard bitch. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess we aren't going to bother talking about Sarah J. Maas because, like, we've done a bunch of her books by now. I think this is our 5th one. Makes sense? That's math.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah.
So...
No, 6th.
Oh, yeah, we did Crescent City.
Yes.
Good job.
This is our 6th.
Yeah, so this is our 6th book. We love her. And she also she kills us because her books are so emotionally damaging.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is obviously the 3rd book of the ACOWAR, what I thought was a trilogy, as I've already said. So we'll just get into it because so much happens.
So this week we are reading from the prologue to chapter 14. Obviously, it's week 1. So we have a prologue that I'm not going to lie, I didn't immediately see the significance of. And even having read the whole book, I'm like, it has been a while since I've read it. So like, I'm trying to remember why the prologue is in there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like, not that I don't appreciate the information, because I do, but I just don't see the relevance of it at this point.
Also, it would be very easy to put this information in later, because Feyre also doesn't know this, so it is something that you could easily put into a conversation that Reese has with Feyre, so I don't know why they, like, specifically made it its own prologue either. It's a good point.
Yeah. Well, hopefully as we go along the weeks, maybe like now that we've brought it up, maybe it'll trigger our memories in the future. And future us, when we read,
Yeah.
will be like, oh, this is why they put it as a prologue. So,
Yeah.
like, hopefully that'll happen.
I think I've only, like, I'm reading the book now, and I do have a physical copy of it, but I've only actually listened to this book on audiobook twice ever at most. Like, I've listened to Throne of Glass 1,000 times, and I've read Throne of Glass physically, but I've only ever listened to this book, and I think I might have listened to it a second time, but I'm not even 100% sure.
Yeah.
So.
It's can I be honest and say it's hard to follow ACOWAR.
Yeah.
Like, Mist and Fury is a hard book to follow because it's just so good.
It is, yeah. The ending is just, like, so diabolical.
Heartbreaking.
Yes.
So, I suppose we should just remind folks of what happened at the end of ACOWAR. So, at the end of ACOWAR, I guess, like, Rhys and Feyre are mates. They are in love, and they make a plan to sneak into Hybern and nullify the Great Cauldron before Hybern can use its deadly power. However, they didn't take into account Tamlin's desperation to get Feyre back, and they set a trap for them, turning Feyre's two sisters, Elaine and Nesta, putting them in the cauldron, turning them Fae, and hurting Cassian, like, to within an inch of his life, then seemingly breaking the mate bond and the hold, quote unquote, Rhys had on Feyre, and Feyre ended up going back to the Sprinc Court with Tamlin, seemingly no longer under Rhys's spell, when we all know the truth. There is no spell, they are mates, but...
And she, like, the thing that I love about it is that she was like, if you force me to come back, I will destroy you. Or, like, something along those lines. I don't remember the exact words, but, like, she was like, if you're actually doing this, I will ruin you. And
yeah.
Premonition.
Yeah, she makes true on her. She definitely makes...
Promise, yeah.
Yeah. So right now we have a prologue. It's set in Rhys's point of view, and it is set during the war, 2 years before they built the wall. And he is on the battlefield in the aftermath of a battle. He talks about the battle itself, how his side had won, but it was very hard fought, and the field was, like, littered with bodies. And that they fought for 3 days, and then his father had finally sent help in the form of a legion of Illyrians. And the Illyrian battalion, I'm going to call it. I don't really know what you call a group of, I don't know what to call it. But, so the Illyrians essentially, like, they joined in on the battle and they helped win it for them, but, like, they were decimated in the process and pretty much all died. So Rhys was just, like, really scared that his father had reassigned Cassian or Azriel to the Legion, like, knowing that it would be wiped out.
Mm-hmm.
And I just have to think, like, and he sort of said, like, probably not Azriel, because his dad keeps him close by because he's his shadow singer and therefore his, like, personal spy, an assassin, I guess.
Yeah.
But, like, I just don't understand, like, why does he dislike Cassian so much? Is it just because they're friends? Like, would it be anybody?
Yeah, I think it's because he realizes how strong the three of them are together, and he's worried that Rhys is going to just kill him and take over.
I guess. It just seems like his dad hates Cass for no reason.
Yeah. He's also a bastard, and
that's true.
They hate that.
Yeah. Anyway, so Rhys is, like, super tired. His magic is completely depleted. He needs water. He needs a bath. but he's out on the battlefield instead, combing through the miles and miles of dead bodies. And essentially he's checking every dead Illyrian to make sure it's not Cassian. Because he just doesn't know where Cass is. And that's the entire... It is awful. Can you imagine having to look through... Like, and there was actually, like, a part in the prologue where he finds someone with a similar hair color and a similar skin tone. And is like, his, like, heart lurches into his throat and he's just scared. Mm-hmm. And then he rolls him over and it's not Cass, it's someone else. But can you imagine having to do that?
Yeah, and you just have to think, like, yes, it isn't his Cass that he rolled over, but it is someone else's Cass. Like, someone else loves that person just as much as he loves his people. It's so... It's sad.
Yeah. And depressing.
Yeah.
But, like, that's the entire scene. So I don't know if it's just, like, sort of trying to cement the relationship that the three guys have, or especially Rhys and Cass, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But again, like, I still love the scene. I appreciated that it's in there. I just wonder why that particular scene. Why is that important?
And I'm sure we'll figure it out because it always happens that you're like, oh shit. So.
Yeah. Anyway, so we skip ahead to the present day. We are in Feyre's POV. And she's painting a pretty spring day in her little sunroom. And she's thinking to herself how everything about her has been carefully crafted to portray someone happy. So, like, she's painting this, like, pretty scene of, like, a spring meadow with flowers and a beautiful sunny day. And all she's thinking to herself as she, like, smiles serenely on the outside, in her head, she's like, lie, lie, lie. Because everything is a lie. Mm-hmm. And she says that, like, she has to portray someone who's happy, but not too happy, because she's recovering from, like, a trauma, but she is recovering, so she has to try and be happy, but not too happy. And I just don't understand how you could be that good of an actor.
Yeah.
Like, acting wise, that is incredible. Somebody should give her an Oscar.
Yeah. And, like, she's in a room by herself at the moment, which is, like, the most impressive part. I'm like, I can't even hide my feelings for 5 seconds in a room with lots of people. They're like, fuck.
Yeah, I know. And, like, it would be so easy to, oh, well, I'm in this room by myself. I can let my true nature show. I can be myself. She doesn't. She can't.
Like, I literally, when I was on strike, somebody drove by and they were like, I drove by the first day and you looked so sad. And I was like, that's my face. Sir, that is my face. Like, I of course, didn't want to be there. But I'm also like,
it's just who I am.
my face. And that's the way it looks like all the time.
Oh my God. Yeah. So her face is happy on the outside. But, like, in reality, she is inside full of rage.
Which I'm here for. I'm here for rage.
We love rage.
Yep.
And she says she wants to burn the whole manor to the ground for what they did to her sisters and Cass and just everyone. And again, I love vengeance. Vengeance is sweet.
I love it.
So Lucien and Tamlin come into the room and she smiles at them and they see her, like, as she wants them to see her. And she said that, like, she had to practice in the mirror to get the perfect smile that reaches her eyes, even though all she wants to do is destroy them.
It's wild. It's actually wild. She's like a psychopath, and I love it so much.
I know. It's great.
I'm here for it.
I am too. So, I guess Tamlin says they're all going to a meeting, and Ianthe is going to be there. So if you remember from Mist and Fury, Ianthe is actually the one who gave up her sisters to Hybern, told him where they live, and helped kidnap them, essentially. So they're all not happy with Ianthe.
Yeah.
But apparently Ianthe said that she had her reasons for giving her sisters up to Hybern, quote unquote. And this meeting is essentially partly to hear her out so that she can make amends and start to heal the court. And I just want to throat punch her.
Yeah. And it's fun being in Feyre's head because she too just wants to throat punch her.
Yeah.
But she's like playing. I'm in awe. Every time I read this, I'm like, wow, how did she do that?
Yeah. So she gets ready for the meeting and she goes to her new bedroom to get ready. She doesn't have the same bedroom she had before because apparently the old one was completely shredded and destroyed and then completely overrun with like plants and vines. So essentially Tamlin, once she left, was so pissed that he went in and completely like destroyed the place because, you know, nothing says love like anger issues.
It's just so shitty, and it's something that I feel like he could easily have just
Controlled?
could have just fixed the room before she came back. Like he technically knew that she was going to be there and he would likely get her back because it's part of the deal he had. So why didn't he just fix the room before? But now the room can't, I'm so confused.
It's a useless room. They just leave it like that.
I know, but he is the Lord of the Sprinc Court. He can control the vines.
Yes. Oh, absolutely he could, but they're choosing not to.
That just makes it even shittier. He's like, look at how bad I am. I can't control my anger. I just fucked this room up.
I think he's probably so fucked up, though, that he's like, look, this is what my love did. I was so out of control. I love you so much.
Yeah, probably.
And it's like, dude.
That's
no.
awful.
Anyway, so her new room is right across from Lucien's room.
Big
I know.
No, not even about Lucien. I don't hate Lucien nearly as much as you do. I just love how she uses him in this part. This is like one of my favorite things. And him being mad later, chef's kiss.
So Lucien is waiting for her outside the door, and they talk a little about Ianthe and how Feyre's saying, like, you know, I'm going to hear her out. Feyre's trying to be the understanding one, and Lucien is the one that's being less forgiving, considering what Ianthe did. She did to Elaine, who, if we remember, turns out to be Lucien's mate. So, you know, it just, like, Feyre's like, oh, you know, we should hear her out for the good of the court and whatever. And Lucien's like, I don't really want to. But he also wants to know where Rhys will be keeping Elaine. He's like, where do you think she is? And he wants to go and get her. But obviously, Feyre knows that Elaine is safe, but has to spin like some form of a lie, trying to get him to like not go get her, because like I agree that this is a hard lie to spin, because if we're taking it at So if we're taking it at the value of Rhys is an asshole, Rhys is dangerous, like, obviously, Feyre just got back and is, like, trying to be horrified at everything that happened to her in Rhys's court. Yet, but Elaine's safe, don't worry.
Yeah, it's hard.
You know what I mean? It's so hard to try and come up with a reason, like, well, why is she safe? You weren't safe. You had such a terrible time there. Why are you okay with your sister being with this guy? Like, shouldn't you want to get her back?
Yeah, and you'd think that Tamlin would notice this at all.
No, but he's dumb.
It's fair.
So, anyway, Feyre sort of, like, says, like, I have no idea. There are so many places that he could be keeping her. And, like, if you go there, you're definitely going to die. And also, like, you don't even know Elaine. So, like, get off.
Yeah.
Like, step back.
Which is fair.
Yeah. This is the one thing that really bothers me. Like, on one hand, I love the mating bond because I'm like...
Yes, a mating bond.
Yes.
This is why...
But on the other hand, I'm like...
We need her book before we can have this conversation because, like... I'm assuming that, like, at the end of her book, either they're going to accept it or they're going to reject it, obviously.
Yeah.
But we don't know right now, so it's so hard to, like, how do we feel about how he's acting? Although I think he, not to get into too much, but I think he, like, acts decently, and she's a bit of a bitch.
Yes, for sure. But, yeah, this is one of the reasons, actually, why I dislike her so much.
Yeah, I get that.
I actually dislike her more than Nesta.
Yeah. Well, she loves gardening, but can't grow a fucking vegetable.
Yeah. Anyway, they meet Ianthe, and, like, obviously she lies her face off about doing it for Feyre, so her sisters could be with her forever and be immortal. And she also says that, like, you know, well, Hybern's forces are too strong, so we might as well just join his side anyway so that we stay alive. Lucien sort of, like, goes up against her and is like, this is not a good reason. You're not a good excuse. But Feyre could tell that Tamlin is, like, trusting everything she says and wants to keep working with her and, like, wants her to, like, stay on as, like, an advisor of sorts.
Yeah. The High Priestess.
Yeah. So, he also sort of says that, their people, not his people, their people would be okay because it was part of the bargain with Hybern. They added in that, like, people living in the Sprinc Court would not be harmed. But Tamlin says that, like, he told all the families to relocate to, like, the most eastern part of the court anyway, just to, like, keep them safe. And this is because there's a delegation coming tomorrow from Hybern to, like, figure out the lay of the land and check out the wall and all this jazz. So Tamlin doesn't want the vulnerable populations around. Thank God he has a little bit of sense.
Yeah.
So there's one person coming to the meeting that they're all a little bit wary about, and that is Jurian. So Jurian was a human that killed baddie Amarantha from book 1, killed her sister 500 years ago.
Sorry, you said killed baddie Amarantha from book 1, and I was like, wait, what? Oh. But you finished it off, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, killed Amarantha, the baddie from book 1, killed her sister Clythia, I think her name is.
I think that's right.
Killed her 500 years ago. Amarantha was hecka pissed and killed Jurian, but then put his soul into an eyeball and put it in a ring and has worn him for 500 years. And Hybern decided to resurrect him with the cauldron. So he is coming tomorrow, and they all think he's crazy. And obviously I would too. If you were stuck in a ring for 500 years, I think you can expect a little crazy.
So this is my biggest issue with these books, is I kind of forget where things happen. But did we see him at all last book? Like, just
at the end.
And he seemed pretty crazy.
He was at the end. He was in the big showdown. He didn't do much, but he was there.
Oh yes, and he's the one that shot the bolt through Asriel, wasn't he?
Maybe.
Yeah, he shot it originally, and then the poison was directed by Hybern. Yes, so he seems shitty.
Yes, he does. So like, Feyre just didn't seem like Tamlin or Lucien or anybody really cared that Hybern had the cauldron and that he was planning on like murdering and enslaving all humans with it. Like, it was just more like, how can we weather this war? How can we survive this war? And it was like, what about all the people that are going to die in this war? Like, it's like she's the only one that cares about the humans. Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, she is. In this court, anyway. And she then added in that, like, when she got back, Tamlin tried to change. And he, like, promised that she was going to be included in all the meetings. And, like, she would have more freedom and she'd be able to do what she wanted.
Yeah.
So, turns out that, I guess they were all chatting, and it turns out that the cauldron, when it changed Elaine and Nesta, it drained the cauldron of power, so they have to wait for it to gain its power back before they can tear down the wall, which is why it's been so long and why they didn't just immediately do it. Yeah. So she is mostly there to get information on how they plan to use the cauldron, and then she's going to send that info to Rhys through the bond. So that's really what she's after. Mm-hmm. Okay, so she then thinks about talking to Rhys and connecting with Rhys. So she says that really she'd only used her mate bond, once to talk to him, just to tell him she was alive and okay, and ask after her sisters. And this, I'm highlighting this point because later on, we just get a little bit. And she just explains in her head that she worries that using the bond would sort of fan the mate bond and cause a scent. Mm-hmm. Because as of right now, people might still be able to scent the mate bond a little bit, but they think it might just be residual scent from all the time she spent with Rhys. But eventually, the scent is supposed to fade. So, and if it doesn't, then those are questions she's going to have to answer, and she's going to figure that out when the time mm-hmm. comes. But as of right now, she's worried that the scent might be a bit subtle right now, and if she uses the mate bond to talk to Rhys, then that might sort of bring the scent out a little bit and fan the flame, as you will. Yeah. And people be like, wait, why do you smell so much like Rhys?
Yeah.
So she's just afraid to use it. So we get the delegation from Hybern show up. It's Jurian and 2 other commanders, and they winnow in. And Feyre just looks at the commanders and think that they look void of emotion from millennia of cruelty. So, like, they're taking a page out of Hybern's book, and they're, like, just like him. So Jurian introduces them, and they are Prince Dagden and Princess Brenna. They are the nephew and niece of the king. And I have a serious question mark about these 2.
Yeah. There's a lot going on.
Yeah. So, yeah, they, so she sort of plays the perfect lady of the house and invites them in, and Jurian says something like rude to Feyre, and Feyre then sort of throws Miriam and Dracon in Jurian's face. So Miriam and Dracon are friends of Rhys. Miriam and Jurian were a couple. They were an item, and she left him for Dracon. So everyone just sort of assumes that Jurian wants revenge and wants to get Miriam back. So she says something equally rude about Miriam and Dracon. So Jurian threatens her, and she then sort of shows a little bit of spine and says, like, in order for this to work, you won't threaten me in my own home.
Fair.
But then she, like, thinks in her head that she specifically baited Jurian so that he would threaten her, so that she could say that line, "Don't threaten me in my own home," so that Tamlin could be convinced, oh, she said her home.
Yeah.
Like, she loves me. She loves it here.
The brains, like, I'm shook.
Yeah. Like, just that little bit. And, like, how did she know that that's how he would respond?
Yeah.
Anyway, so she said that when she enacts her plan, she does this so that Tamlin won't suspect her at all. So at dinner that night, Branna tells the table that they want to go check out the holes in the wall tomorrow, so Feyre offers to take them along with Lucien. The reason why I have a question mark about the twins is because Branna does all the talking. Dagden doesn't. And also they share a room. And he also, like, cuts up all her food for her, places it on plates for her, like, serves her. It just seems like there's something extra going on. Like some Game of Thrones shit.
Yes. Also, Feyre kind of is like, she even thinks there might be something extra going on. But you saying cutting up their food and stuff, I'm like, you do that for me.
It's true. I have done that
and
for you.
we don't have anything extra going on.
No. But to be fair, I don't have to do that for you anymore because you don't eat meat anymore. Now, I still would if you needed me to cut up your, like, tofu or something.
Yeah, well, I can cut up my own tofu.
Or, like, need me to cut up your cauliflower steak? I will.
Thank you. But yeah, no, it's just kind of funny. Because, yeah, there is an undertone that there is something else going on with these two. Or possibly something, like, we never get a definitive answer.
No. But also, they're sick and twisted, so, like, if there is something else going on, or, like, come on. Of course there is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah, exactly.
So, they're having dinner still. And Jurian starts to sort of, like, rile them up by, like, saying some controversial things. And Feyre sort of realizes that the twins are Damati?
Damati.
Is that how we pronounce it?
I thought it was
Damati.
Yeah.
Damati.
You're in your French brain.
I am, yeah. And she sort of, like, casts out her, like, net of awareness, as she likes to call it, and sees the twins going for Tamlin and Lucien's minds.
How are you a High Lord and a High Lord's son, and you don't have any mental shield at all? Like, it's just
dumb.
Because, like, in later books, Nesta has a mental shield. She's a fucking human. Like, it blows my mind, and I don't understand it, and I hate it.
But do you know what I think it is? I feel like they don't expect it. One, because they think that the only one with Damati are very rare. So maybe they just didn't feel the need to make a mental shield because the only one that they need to protect themselves from is Rhys, and he's not here.
But he's also their, like, greatest enemy. And so you think that
Maybe they don't realize they can.
yeah, I guess. It just seems wild, and I hate
I agree.
it.
Yeah, no, it's dumb. Uh, anyway, so they aren't blocking their minds. So she has to like reach out with her power and block them, which like she does it so suddenly that the twins aren't expecting it and they sort of jump back in their seat.
I love it.
And I know, but then she goes one step further and uses her mind to rake talons across, like down their bone white mental shields, like just to send a message that like she knows what they're doing and to give it up.
Yeah, and she can fight back. She can do it
Yeah.
too. I love it.
Yeah, I know, me too. So they're sort of like, whoa, okay. So they give it a rest. So the next day, they take the twins and Jurian to the gap in the wall. I think they just go on horseback this time. They talk strategy, like how big the hole in the wall is, and then they make plans to visit the other two, which are a lot further away, so they have to like plan trips. Feyre and Lucien step away to have a chat, and she asks him like what side of the war he would have fought for if he had been alive, and he said he definitely would have fought for the humans.
No. I'm just like, then what the fuck is he doing now?
Right? I know.
I'm like, you can say as much as you want that you're going to fight for the right side when you know the war is over, but there is currently a conflict happening, and you're going to say you would have fought for something that is like, you're clearly going against it right in this second. I don't know how he isn't just like, oh shit, you're right, I am a piece of shit.
Yeah, so she then sort of thanks him for coming to Hybern to get her. Like, she's trying to act as if she wanted to be rescued. And even, she says, like, thanks. Like, even though I know you're not comfortable with what went down, like, thank you for coming to get me. And then she asks, like, what Lucien thinks of why they want to break the wall. Like, what's their purpose besides human suffering? Like, she thinks there must be another purpose. Because if it was just to make the humans suffer, they could go through the hole. They don't need to break the whole wall.
Yeah.
So they're speaking, like, closely and quietly so that others don't hear. But then the twins and Jurian come upon them and they're, like, nose to nose. And Jurian finds that, like, really interesting. He's like, what's going on here?
I love it so much. It's so calculating, and my brain just explodes. I'm like, you're so smart.
She's just always thinking. She's always thinking, like, how is this going to look? What is this going to achieve? Mm-hmm. Like, not one conversation is pointless.
Yeah. It's wild.
So it is wild. So they return to the stables, and Ianthe is there waiting for them. And Feyre can tell that the royals and Jurian really don't like her. They just, like, tolerate her.
Yeah.
Feyre is really stiff from riding a horse because she hasn't done it in a while. So it says that she gives Lucien, like, sort of a look. So he comes over and helps her off of it. But he helps her off of it by grabbing her by the waist and, like, lifting her down. So, like, again, sort of like...
another reason to get his hands on her. And it is just, it's so calculated.
Yeah.
It's wild.
So Ianthe asks to speak to Feyre about the summer solstice party that they're going to throw. So she says, yeah, like, I'll meet you in an hour after I, like, change and whatever. Then she takes Lucien arm in arm and they walk out of the stable together. So, like, again, she's just, like, the way she's dismissing Ianthe and then, like purposefully, like, linking arms with Lucien. I don't understand, like, how he doesn't see it, though.
I know. He's so blind.
Like, I really, really don't understand because, like, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. She's just being really familiar with him. Mm-hmm. And, like,
she wasn't really like that before. Yeah, I really think he should have realized, but
Yeah, like, and if she wants to look like she's flirting, if it were me, I would have been like, are you flirting with me? Like, I feel like you can tell.
yeah, you 100% can. But I guess, like, he's so used to being second wing to Tamlin, but also the only flirting directional at him has been Ianthe, who is, like, inappropriately being a piece of shit.
Yeah. But yeah, so they chat a little bit more. I guess Feyre is concerned, not concerned at first, but she's like, Ianthe seems to have laid off you a little bit, because before she went to the night court, Ianthe was like constantly making eyes at Lucien, wanting to like hook up with him. And so she's like, what's going on? Like, seems like she's backed off. And he said, yeah, because she got what she wanted. And she was like, what the fuck? What do you mean? And he tells her about the last Callan Mai. So Callan Mai is a very like intimate sexual ritual. It restores the power to the Sprinc Court. And normally it's performed by the High Lord. And he has to essentially, like, in the throes of Callan Mai, he has to have sex with someone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what happened in the, like, ACOWAR, if y'all remember that. The ritual actually happened, and he slept with somebody else, so I don't know why he's so high and mighty right now. But
anyway, so Tamlin refused to participate because Feyre was not there. So Lucien had to do it in his stead. Lucien had to volunteer because if not, the magic would fade from the Sprinc Court. So that's like unacceptable. And he did it with Ianthe, which I also don't get. Like, because in ACOWAR, there was like rows and rows of females waiting to be chosen, and the magic dictated
who he picked. Yeah.
Who he picked. So I don't understand why, like, it was just decided, oh, you're going to do it with Ianthe today. Like, why couldn't they do the lineup of women?
Yeah, but can he actually pick someone he wanted?
Yeah. Anyway, so he says, like, he did his duty. He wasn't forced or coerced. He went willingly, but not happily.
Which sounds like unwillingly.
Yeah.
It's sad. This part does make me feel sad for him. And more parts of it, obviously. But yeah, I feel bad for him. And I also appreciate the, like, actually putting a spotlight on male sexual assault. Because it is in this book, and I appreciate it because it happens.
It happens.
And it's often overlooked. I do appreciate it, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So Feyre says that she wishes she was there, so he didn't have to do that. And she says that this was one of the one instances that she's being honest. Like, she's not lying about it. She actually does wish she could have done something
of course, yeah.
About it. And he responds that she has been a much better friend to him than he has been to her. Yes! Truth! You've been a terrible friend.
Okay.
I don't even know if I would call him a friend. He's been a D-bag. So over the next few days, she sits in on the meetings with the royals. They sort of interrogate her, not actively interrogate her, but they question her about the night court. So she does have to reveal some information. Like talking about the Illyrians and how there's a ton of Illyrian warbands in the mountains. But so she has to tell them that. However, she does sort of feed some misinformation along with it, like picking the weakest Illyrian warband as the strongest. So she tells them, like, this is the strongest one, this is the weakest one. But really, it's opposite.
Yeah.
So, like, obviously she has to do something.
Yeah. It's just funny because, like, I never thought about it before, but I'm like, if you tell them that the weakest is the strongest and then they go attack it, they're all going to die. Are all of those deaths on Feyre now?
I don't know.
That seems...
Well, but I feel like you wouldn't go after the strongest, you would go after the weakest.
Maybe, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's true.
So if she tells them, oh, this one is the weakest, when really they're the strongest, they're going to go in thinking they have an easy victory when really a lot of them are going to die.
Yes, that's true.
Anyway, so later on she has a meeting with Alice about clothing because and she has to try and pick what she's going to wear for summer solstice. And Alice is like, I don't know what we're going to do because a lot of your dresses were taken way in because you were so skinny and now we can't take them out again. So we're probably just going to have to order you more clothes. And Alice can see right through everything Feyre is doing.
I love it.
Because, and I do too. And I don't understand how other people don't see the same thing.
Yes.
Because she sees that Feyre came back healthy, whereas before she was skin and bones and throwing up everything, and now she's not. So, like, how do you think she was being abused? She's tanned, she's muscly, like, she's more confident. To me, that doesn't say, hello, I've been tortured for months.
Yeah. But you see what you want to see. So for Tamlin, 100%, he sees what he wants to see because he wants to be the hero, and that's where he is. So
anyway, so she also says that, like, she had a friend who was a servant, or like a family member who was a servant under the mountain, and that person told Alice that, like, Rhys never laid a hand on any of the servants, that he would harm, like, Rhys's, that he would harm Amarantha's guards, entitled lords that were being assholes, or, like, people that Amarantha forced him to. But other than that, he would never lift his hand to someone who was powerless. And she also said she had a cousin at the summer court who saw Feyre there, happy and laughing. And in addition to that, she was there the day Moore took her and saw Feyre, like, cling to her. Like, it wasn't a kidnapping.
Yeah.
And, like, I think that's sort of the story she's hanging her hat on, is that they took me like I didn't want to be taken, when we all know she did.
Yeah.
So she sort of doesn't believe her. This is the only thing I dislike about what her and Alice, like, their little chat, because she just says, like, whatever you're doing here, can you please leave my nephews out of it? And I'm like, how do you not know? Like, she literally saved the Sprinc Court. She went under the mountain to risk her life. Like, how can you think that she would put your nephews in danger?
Yes, but Alice also didn't really, like, we know Alice said in the last book, like, take care of her, whatever she said when Moore took her, but, like, Alice also didn't get her out. She didn't help her. Like, Feyre could very well go and be like, I'm going to take vengeance on all of these people. Like, we know, based on, like, your position in a place, Alice is not to blame. Yeah. But maybe she's like, I see through you, I'm not telling anyone, please don't put my kids, like, I can see why she says it, because that's, like, her whole heart, and that's all she cares about. But it does feel like she should know better. And I think they do have a moment, I think it's still this week.
Yeah.
Where it kind of gets resolved more, I'll say.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I get what you're saying.
Anyway, so they do the summer solstice. And we had a summer solstice in ACOWAR, and it was actually one of I don't know, would you call it? It was like one of the moments where Feyre and Tamlin got close. I think it was the
100%.
first. I think it was the first night he kissed her, maybe like in a loving way,
Yeah,
not in a I'm under a Calanmai sort of spell sort of a way.
which is like just
I know. So instead of just having like a big party, which is what they did last year, Ianthe has made this like a really big religious ceremony first.
I love.
Do,
Not the no. I love this scene.
oh,
I love this scene. I love what happens.
I'm like, you love a big religious ceremony?
I
Since when?
love a big religious ceremony. Like, just wait. Just wait until I get married, and it is going to be the most religious. JK, there's going to be an open bar.
So yeah, so there's this big religious ceremony, and there's a service out like in the woods on the top of a hill so that they see the sunrise, as you know, like they want to be there when the sun rises. They have to get up ungodly early. But it's really funny though, because I know a lot of people that sometimes will get up like ungodly early and go to okay, so there's just this hill that is like one of the highest points, like next to the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And it overlooks the ocean. So I actually know an ungodly amount of people that wake up super early and go over there and like watch the sunrise. Apparently, it's a thing to do.
Canada Day is I guess the province is what I'll say, or maybe I'm assuming it's provincial, but they literally have cake there, and it's like a giant sheet cake that you get at like Costco. And if you go for the sunrise at like 4 or 5 a.m. on Canada Day, which is July 1st, they'll cut you off a piece of cake, and you can watch the sunrise and eat a piece of cake.
That's interesting.
I've gone before. I haven't gone in the last like 10 years.
It's just weird. Like, that is not something I ever have thought to do. It's not something I've ever really been like, oh, I think I want to watch the sunrise.
The only time I see the sunrise is when I stay up too late from watching something.
Yes!
Or
yes.
Like, I will not wake up to see the sunrise. I will see the sunrise inadvertently because I stayed up too late.
Yeah, agreed. Hear, hear.
Hear, hear.
Anyway, so they get up before the sunrise. They go out to this hill. And Ianthe has made this like stone altar, and she starts her ceremony. And there's like a ton of prayers involved, and like there's a big crowd of people. And Feyre helped her plan the ceremony and sort of manipulated her into including the twins and Jurian into participating, by making it seem like they thought she was irrelevant. So she was like, I'll show them. And so she like planned them to do like an offering or a prayer or something like that. Obviously then too, Tamlin also had to participate because he's a High Lord. So that meant that Feyre and Lucien were left alone. Like, so, at the beginning, it was Feyre, Tamlin, Lucien, and then Jurian and the twins sort of in the front row. And then gradually they all left except for Feyre and Lucien. Mm-hmm. So they were sort of left on one side while everybody else was on the other side. So, like, isolating them, putting them together, like we've sort of seen her sort of start doing already. And Ianthe also planned it with her acolytes that when the sun rose, it would shine on her at the exact moment she wanted it to, which would like make it seem like the divine was filling her up and that she's super holy and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Bullshit. So they marked the spot where she has to stand in order to get that effect with a rock. But Feyre moved it with her wind power. So Ianthe was standing in the wrong spot, and when the sun rose, it shined not on Ianthe, but all over Feyre, who was also wearing a pure white gown with a pure white woolen cloak. And then she also released like her sun power. So she was literally glowing, and it made her look divine and blessed. And all the residents saw her being blessed, not Ianthe.
And she like plays surprise so well, and she's like, I don't know. What is happening?
I don't understand.
Yeah.
But, like, also, like, just think about how many steps of manipulation went into that. Like,
mind is blown at all times. Like, I can't.
Like, this is Aelin level manipulation and planning ahead here.
100%.
Anyway, so, like, she grabs Lucien's hand for support. Again, like, showing her getting close to him. And I just love, like, she's literally thinking out every single action she does.
Yes.
And, like, Lucien is so dumb because he sees it and he's just, like, reverential towards her. And, like, he gets down on his knee to kneel before her. And then everybody else also kneels before her because she is, like, cauldron blessed and, like, blah, blah, blah.
Do you know what it is, though? It's his guilt. He feels so guilty about the shit he didn't do when she was actually living there, that now that she's back, even though he is obviously mistrustful of her, like, he doesn't think she's being 100% honest, but he's also, like, trying to... It's also, I guess it's a bit of two things. It's his guilt, and it's also the fact that he is like, I need to keep her on my good side.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I wonder what that eye does.
I agree. I really want to know what the eye does. So that ends sort of this whole ceremony. They go to the party afterwards, and she stays close to Lucien. Not Tamlin. And people keep coming over to, like, talk to her and touch her hand and, like, sort of they want to worship her, I guess. Ianthe is sort of trying to gain back the control and be like, oh, the gods have blessed my friend. But, like, no one's really listening. No one really cares. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She takes a break and speaks down the bond to Rhys, just asking how everyone is. And, like, they miss each other, and they have a cute little exchange. And while I love this is just, so, like, over the past few days, this is the second time she's contacted him.
Well, it's the second time she's contacted him, I think. In total. Yeah.
Anyway, because she talks about, we talked about just a few minutes ago that she's nervous about actually contacting him and fanning the flame of her mate bond. So this is time number 2 now. Just putting that out there. So she dances with Tamlin, and, you know, like, she's giving him shy, coy looks, and this is the one thing that I didn't really get about, like, how was she going to play the physicality? Because obviously she's not going to have sex with him. She's in love with Rhys. So I'm like, how is she going to do that? And she does a really great job. So here she's like...
She does such a good job.
Yeah. So she dances with him. She smiles at him. She, like, touches his shoulder. But she wonders, like, if he thinks that putting everybody in danger is worth it for her. And I think we all know that he probably does think it's worth it, because he wouldn't have done it if he didn't.
Yeah.
But I wish he could smarten up. And I actually see a ton of people who, like, really want a redemption arc with him and, like, want him to find a mate and blah, blah, blah. I don't know. He can die.
That's fair.
I'm totally okay if he deceases.
Yeah. Oh, I'm fine with a redemption arc.
Like, he would, to me, I feel like it's such a steep hill to climb. That's my problem. Like, I don't know how he could make up for that much crap.
I know, but at the end of this book, I think he's already started to make up for it. But then the book after happens that I didn't actually think was going to be a thing, and I'm like, oh shit, you're
Still
you're
a
shitty.
dick.
Good
Still
job.
a dick, yeah.
Yeah, so it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah. So that night she gets ready for bed and she thinks to herself, oh, it's hot, so I'm going to wear one of my little negligees. Mm-hmm. This is what, like, this is the thing, though. She's also manipulating us here as readers.
Yes.
Because she says she's going to put on a negligee because it's so hot and sticky. So then she goes to bed. And she's tossing and turning and kicking sheets. And she has a dream about being under the mountain and gets scared and wakes up. And she runs across the hall to Lucien. And knocks on his door. He answers it. And she's like, I had a nightmare. And so he invites her into his room. And then they talk about her nightmare a little bit. And then he's got pants on, but he doesn't have a shirt on. So she cries into his bare chest, and she says very specifically that it is salt water from the summer court coming out of her eyes, not real tears.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, Tamlin shows up, and he is mad.
Of course he is.
Well, I mean, she's hugging in half naked to his best friend, so...
Just... so smart. It's so fucking smart.
So, like, he's sort of like, what the hell is going on here? And she's like, I had a nightmare. And, like, pushes him out of the room into the hallway. And Lucien, I guess, closes his door behind them. And then she just says, like, I had a nightmare. Like, you know, reasserts, like, I just had a nightmare. And then she goes into her room and shuts the door on Tamlin.
She's almost gaslighting him. Like, 100%.
Well, she 100% is. But, like...
I'm not saying it's bad. I love this revenge arc. But I'm also like, she is 100% gaslighting him in a lot of ways. But she's also not doing anything... not wrong, because she's obviously still in love with Reese, so, like, she's emotionally and physically in a different relationship, and pretending to be in this one. That's not great for a relationship. No. But also, he stole her back, so, like, can you really blame her?
Yeah. So, apparently she, like, planned this whole thing. So this is where I said she was, like, manipulating us as the reader. Because literally 2 minutes ago, she said it was hot and sticky because it was summer, so she's wearing a negligee. But now she's saying, I purposely wore the negligee because I had planned to wake up and go into Lucien's room, and I wanted to be as naked as possible. Mm-hmm. So, like, had nothing to do with the heat.
Which is wild.
Yeah. She also said that she had been touching Tamlin suggestively during the party, like rubbing his shoulders, touching his arm, giving him shy, coy looks, because and she knew that he would come and see her for sexy times.
Yeah.
So she purposefully, although I don't know how she timed it right. That's the one thing I don't get. How did she time it so that she knew when Tamlin was going to show up?
I think she said that she, like, had, like, her magic set traps in the house so that, like, he would trip them when he went by them.
Okay.
But, like, this is a thing that Sarah J. Maas loves doing, and you think you're in a character's head, and then you realize afterwards that you didn't know the whole story, and you're like, is everything live? What the fuck is going on?
So like, she purposefully, when she was invited into Lucien's room, she purposefully left the door open. And then she put up a hard wall of air of magic around the room so that Lucien couldn't hear or smell Tamlin approach, so that when he did come upon them, he would be equally surprised. So she's totally preying on Tamlin's insecurities. that, and those insecurities being that she would pick Lucien over him. Because again, in the first book, we saw that a lot of like Tamlin threatening Lucien to stay away and like not get too close. But it just seems to me that like her and Tamlin aren't really acting like they're in a relationship. Like I don't understand how he is okay with this. Like even holding hands and like a kiss on the cheek, a kiss on the forehead, kiss on the lips, like, you know what I mean? Like not even just the sex, but like just the physical like intimacy and the emotional intimacy of being in a relationship. Like it seems like she doesn't really spend that much time with him. They don't really chat unless they're in meetings, like.
But they didn't before either. When they were in an actual physical relationship, she wasn't involved in anything in his life other than sex. So like he probably doesn't realize.
I guess. So the next morning, there are gate keys missing, but they aren't doing anything about it and they aren't worried about it at this point in time. So just keep that in your back pocket for a little bit. Lucien is at this point trying to keep his distance from Feyre, like after last night. Like he won't really look at her or talk to her, and like he's just trying to stay away because he knows that like Tamlin is pissed.
Yeah.
Ianthe comes in and she needs to speak to Tamlin. And she's like, oh, maybe. So, like, she makes this big deal about coming in and saying, I need to speak to you about something important. And then, like, they're all having breakfast. So she's like, oh, well, maybe this should wait until we're alone. Like, maybe we should speak privately. Like, so, like, she makes this big deal about trying to stay relevant, especially after the summer solstice thing yesterday. But Feyre's like, listen, if we can trust our allies in battle, then we can trust them with whatever you have to say. So, like, just go ahead and say it. And Tamlin just sort of has to be like, yeah, like, just go ahead. And she says that there are grounds around her temple dying, and she believes it to be the Naga, and that a group of Naga have infiltrated. And initially when she says, oh, the grounds around my temple have died, Jurian makes a joke, or one of the twins, that maybe they should get the groundskeeper, and like, why is that a problem for the High Lord? And then she says, oh, it's the Naga, I know it is. And then Feyre also says, oh, maybe it is a problem for the groundskeeper, like trying to dismiss the problem again. And she knows that Ianthe is like inventing this problem to make her relevant.
Yeah.
And to make herself seem like useful.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, they go to the next gap in the wall. This one is so they plan on going to the next gap in the wall. And Ianthe suggests that maybe Tamlin should go. And Feyre says no, because she can take care of herself and Tamlin's going to stay here. So Ianthe brings up Rhys. Like, she's really trying to assert her dominance and say, well, like, Rhys, maybe he's going to try and take Feyre down. So, like, you know, if you're not going to go with her, like, maybe she'll be in danger. But then she says, maybe you should return his family's wings to try and, like, calm him down. And Feyre actually has been looking all over the manor for those wings because Rhys knows that they've been, like, knows that they were missing, and they thought maybe he had mounted them as trophies. But Tamlin says that he burned them ages and ages ago. And Feyre's, like, so mad both at Tamlin and Ianthe that she literally wants to take Ianthe's head and, like, bang it on the table. And I'm
Which is completely fair.
Yeah.
Do it.
Samesies.
Like, imagine if she just did it in front of all these people. I would be there for it, but I don't think they would be.
So Tamlin decides like he doesn't need to go, but he tells Lucien to be careful. And it's not as a caring gesture, it's a warning. Like,
Yeah.
don't touch
Everybody can see that.
Yeah, don't touch my woman. So
she's not your woman.
No, God. So they leave and they make it to the spot in the wall by winnowing and walking. So Feyre, each person has to carry someone else. So Feyre and Lucien both have to carry a sentry each, and Dagden has to carry his twin sister and Jurian. So they check out the wall for the day, and it takes them a long time to get there because winnowing with people is really tiring. So when they get there, they have to camp overnight. And Lucien and Feyre are supposed to share a tent. And Lucien's sort of second guessing. Like, maybe we shouldn't. Maybe I should sleep outside. And Feyre's just sort of like, dude, like, get over yourself.
Yeah.
And Lucien and Feyre sort of like, he's like, Tamlin wouldn't like it. And Feyre's like, Tamlin can kiss my ass. Like, seriously, just get in the tent.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, maybe he's a little sensitive because you guys haven't,
Oh, I can't. I'm like, sir, please.
Get out of their sex life.
Yeah. Back yourself up and take a seat.
But yeah, so he's like, you have it, right? Like, and she says no, because, and this is how she's been getting away with no sex. She said she doesn't want to be touched like that for a while. And I feel like that must make her feel so greasy. Yeah. You know what I mean? To like, because then she's insinuating that she was sexually assaulted, really, and like.
Especially knowing Reese's history with sexual assault.
Yeah.
It is very hard, but obviously the alternative is worse.
Yeah.
I assume.
Well, the alternative is actual sexual assault for her.
Yes, exactly. It's such a, like, I can't believe she's in this situation, really, because what a piece of shit.
So they chat a little bit about Tamlin's deal with Hybern, and because Feyre's just sort of like, I hate that we're doing this. I hate that we have to like be their allies. And Lucien's like, yeah, me too. However, Tamlin's deal with Hybern is crafted with like ancient magic, and if Tamlin breaks the deal, his magic will be taken, and like his life could potentially be taken from him. I know, cry me a river.
Right.
And he said that like he knows a lot about these ancient deals now because when Feyre was initially not when Feyre was initially taken, but before she was taken, like after they got back from under the mountain, Lucien went to the day court to try and get Feyre's bargain with Rhys broken. And it's the same sort of magic as Tamlin and Hybern's deal. But they couldn't break it. And they sort of said, okay, we'll keep trying. But they were slow because they couldn't figure it out. And Tamlin was inconsolable. Apparently he killed the 2 guards that were on duty the day Feyre was quote-unquote taken.
Which is insane, because he should have killed himself.
Yeah.
He's the one that made this happen.
But also, like, I don't know, man. I just don't know. He is a dummy. He is a moron.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the end of that conversation. They go to sleep. Next morning, they hear a noise and they check it out, and it is 3 children of the blessed or the blessed. Those are humans that worship the Fae for no reason, and they are coming to live in peace across the wall. And the twins, so like right now they're on the opposite side of the wall, and the twins are trying to urge them through and to come over. But Feyre can obviously tell that they want to torture and kill these humans.
Yeah.
So Feyre, like, uses her powers to go into their minds and make them believe the Fae are terrifying, so they, like, run.
Which they are.
Yeah. Afterwards, Jurian actually thanks her for saving the humans. Which is wild, considering they all think that Jurian's, like, psychotic piece of trash.
Yeah.
But, like, he actually thanks her for saving the humans, which is good for him. So they spend the whole day at the wall, and, like, Feyre's sort of like, what are they even doing? Like, what are they looking for? Mm-hmm. That night, her and Jurian have a chat. And, like, seeing, like, what do you want? Like, what do you want out of life? You have the second chance of life. And he says he wants to draw Miriam and her prince out of hiding and get revenge. So everyone's been telling him that Miriam is dead, but they actually attempted a resurrection of her and it didn't work. So Jurian knows that she not dead. She's alive!
Yes.
She tells him that she would like to get revenge on Rhys one day. Because, again, like, she's playing a part.
Of course.
And Jurian tells her that, like, she forgets that he actually knew Rhys during the war. Like, they fought on the same side.
Yeah.
And he said that he was one of the best males he ever knew. And it didn't matter how many years passed, like, he wouldn't stop being that person unless it was a calculated decision on his own, like, of his own. So he's like, all of this stuff on, like, his reputation of being an asshole, like, I know that he must want that reputation, because he wouldn't have that reputation if he didn't want it, because he's not like that. So, you know, and then he also said his mate is living in another court and is right now out in the woods all alone, unprotected, and he has not come for you. So, like, he's like, maybe he didn't lose you. Maybe you're not gone from him. Maybe he's unleashed you on all of us. And I just want to say, like, congratulations, Jurian is the only one with open eyes in this entire court.
Yeah. 100%, yeah.
And, like, as much as we hate Jurian because he's an asshole and bad guy, like, he's on the bad team.
Mm-hmm.
I love that he's, like, figuring it out.
But he's also, like, keeping it to himself.
Which I love!
I know. I'm like, there's more to this guy.
It's like, what are you doing, sir?
Right?
Yeah. So he obviously has his own agenda, I think, is the thing.
Yes. But his agenda seems very much just Marion. Like, that is it. His agenda is Marion, and that is what he's, like, the only thing he cares about.
Single-minded, we'll say.
It's a bit much.
What?
I'm being honest.
Like, why are all these people so obsessed with their significant others? Like, be an individual. Be your own person.
It's been 5,000 years.
500? 500?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Oh. It might actually be 500. I was exaggerating. But he was in a ring for a very long time.
Years.
He was, like, literally just an eyeball and a finger bone. And now he is a person. He should go out, try to make a life. Like,
meet a nice girl.
Go try new things. Have you tried walking in a field lately? Because you have legs now, sir. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Yeah, go use those legs. Go like have a hookup. You haven't had sex in like hundreds to thousands of years. Meet a nice
Exactly.
girl. Have sex. Knock her
Meet a
up.
not nice girl.
Yeah.
Meet anyone.
Yeah. No. Yeah, he needs to get over it, but as of right now he
Mhm.
can't. So they all go to sleep again. They wake the next morning to the smell of blood. So apparently the twins hunted down the children of the blessed and brought them back to camp and tore them to shreds. And they must have put up like a wall of silence around
Yeah,
so
because
that they wouldn't wake up to
they would
the.
have heard it.
Yeah. Obviously, Pharaoh's pissed. Uh, and they talk her, and like Jurian is also pissed actually.
Yes.
And Jurian and Lucien and her sort of meet around the biggest piece of human remains. It was like a dude's torso, was the biggest piece they can find. So she's sort of like, should we bury it? Like, and the response is like, well, no, we don't want that. That would message would be that we're okay cleaning up their messes. So she's like, I have a better idea. And the next thing we know, they're back. They're back in the manor, and they're in her and Lucien, and they're in Tamlin's office, and they're getting a lecture because, as retaliation, they sicked the bogue on the twins. And
Good for them.
the bogue is the that one that changes into whatever you're afraid of, right? Or like turns into something you really want.
I think so. I thought the key was the one that turns
Right.
into what you want.
Yeah, you're
I
right.
think the bogue is your nightmares. Like it went by her, and Lucian was like, "Keep your eyes closed if you open them." Yeah,
Right. Don't look at it.
yeah.
So they found a bogue, lured it back to the twins, and sicked it on the twins. And Tamlin's pissed because he's like, we're in an alliance with these people, and you guys like pulled a tantrum and acted like children.
Yeah.
But Feyre's like pissed because it seems like he doesn't care at all about the fact that human lives were lost.
Mm-hmm.
And he sort of says like, I expect it from Feyre, but I don't expect it from you, Lucien. And Feyre's like, why do you expect it from me? And he sort of is like, well, you have a personal connection. And she's like, any lives lost is a problem. Like, it doesn't matter that I was once human. Like, this is why we need a wall to keep us peaceful, because you think
Yeah.
that the lives lost as humans are worth less than yours. And I'm like, yes, queen.
Right. It's so good, and she knows that people are like outside the door listening, and she's like,
Yeah.
"Oh,
Yeah.
she is so smart."
I know. So I guess Tamlin like kicks Lucien out, and him and Feyre have a private conversation, and she yells at him, and she is doing it on purpose to make sure that the sentries that are positioned outside the door, and that Lucien, who is also outside the door, talking about how like she's like, I'm just trying to get some of our cred back, like our credit or credentials or whatever, trying to get some of it back because like she was like, you hoard us out to Hybern for me.
Yeah.
And I love it. And then she says like, I see the way they look at me. I see the way they like, none of the sentries, none of the soldiers, they don't like being in Hybern's pocket. And she says like, she's just trying to make things right or make things a little better by showing that we're not Hybern's bitch. And then
Yeah.
she says, you may be willing to get on your knees for Hybern, but I am not.
Oh.
And I love it so much.
And I realize that she is 100% baiting him. But no one deserves to be attacked or to be assaulted for anything they say ever.
No.
So, I know that she's doing this on purpose, but the fact that he actually goes as far as he goes is too much. It's too much.
Yeah. But again, it's one of the reasons why I don't see a redemption arc for him. Because he is the type of person, because I see all these people that are like, oh, I want him to find his mate and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, man, if you want him to find, who are you hoping he finds? A doormat. You are going to want him to find someone who will never argue with him, who will never put him in his place, because this is what he is. He cannot control his anger.
It's hard because, I would like him to get a redemption arc as, but then this scene specifically is one that, goes too far for me.
Yeah.
This is, literally the scene that I'm like, oh, this is the last straw that I cannot get behind. And I don't think there's anywhere to go from here. Because, if this is your reaction, and unless you change as a person, which he hasn't yet in future books, and a woman shouldn't have to come in to change him, because that is not her job. No. And I don't want that to be some woman's job to come in and be like, you're better now. What the fuck?
Yeah.
But this is literally yes, everything he did the last book was awful. He was not a good person. But a lot of it can be traced back to he had trauma as well, and he wasn't dealing with it well, she wasn't dealing with it well, they both were explosive together, and he did some bad things, but it is traced back to his trauma. But this situation, yes, she baited him, but nobody should ever be treated like this. This is a hard line.
Yeah. Well, this is literally, if these were two humans, the same thing, it would be her saying, you're an asshole, I hate you, and then him, punching her in the face. She doesn't deserve that, regardless of what she says. No,
but she didn't even say it.
I know she didn't say that. I'm just saying, no person, I feel like a lot of people gloss over this because this situation, he bursts out with his magic. It's not...
And you can't control your magic. Yeah. But he is...
a High Lord.
How many years old? The bajillion.
Hundreds.
Yeah. If he can't control his magic at this point, how is that any different than a man that can't control his anger and then beats his wife?
Yeah.
It's the exact same... This is the exact same situation.
Yeah. That's what I was trying to say. You just said it more succinctly than me.
No. We're on the same page. We're not arguing with each other.
No.
We're both on the same page.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. You said the same thing as I did. You just said it more succinctly.
Yeah. But it's all the same.
Yeah. Nobody would bat an eye with saying that this was terrible and wrong if it was a man and a woman and the man punched the woman in the face. Everyone would be outraged. But because it's magic, people are like, it's cat.
He couldn't control it.
It's not his fault. It's I don't care.
But it's the same, I know it's not the same thing, but it's in the real world of our lives, people are like, oh, well, when he drinks, he gets like that. But if he doesn't drink, then he doesn't. So he's not going to drink anymore, and everything's going to be fine. And then he drinks, and then it's not fine. And then you're like, is is this real life right now? Like, is this what's happening?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. And it's worse, in my opinion, that this hundreds of year old person can't control his magic. He is hundreds of years old. He should have figured it out by now. And if he can't, someone should fucking take it away from him.
I actually saw a theory that, like, do you know what this reminds me of? And I feel like we're getting off on a tangent right now, but I don't care.
It's fine. There we go.
Remember the Star Wars Episode 9? If you haven't seen it, maybe skip ahead a second. But at the end, remember, like, everyone was like, oh my god, like, what's going to happen at the end of Star Wars Episode 9? Because everyone wanted Rey and Kylo Ren to be together.
Not everyone.
Okay, well, a lot of people wanted Rey and Kylo Ren to be together. But everyone was like, there's no way for him to have a redemption arc because what he's done is too terrible. Sure enough, at the end, they get together for a millisecond and then he goes kaput. Yeah. And it's the same thing. Like, he killed his dad. There is no coming back from that. And all the atrocities he committed, like, for the Empire. Like, so, like, he could not be redeemed except in death. I feel like this is a similar scenario. I don't think Tamlin can be redeemed except in a death situation. And then the Sprinc Court power gets passed to someone like Elaine or something like that.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I'm just never gonna get behind anything bad about Kylo Ren, and I will. No, I know. On this hill. So I know.
Listen,
he's the love of my life, and I'm never.
I know. Listen, I feel you. I'm really upset that he died. I wish they could have just, like, had him, because in my mind, he did his job. He could have stayed alive. Him and Rey could have been together forever, and I would have been so happy.
Right?
Anyway, so yeah, I feel like there's no way for Tamlin to be redeemed. I haven't even said what happens at this part.
Yeah, I know. Sorry.
So he actually, after, like, Feyre essentially tells him that he's gonna, like, give Hybern a BJ, Tamlin does this, like, exploding anger thing that he did in the last book. But Feyre did all of this on purpose to get him to do that. Yes. And she purposefully does not block him. In the last book, she accidentally, like, blocks him with a wall of air. This time, she chooses not to, so that she gets injured on purpose. So, like, she gets pushed into the wall by a desk. Her face and neck gets sliced by debris. Mm-hmm. It makes this big noise, and Lucien barges back in and is like, "What have you done?" And
which is the best part. Like, I'm sure when he barged in, she was like, "Oh my god, this is the cherry on top." But also, like,
yeah.
The last time that it happened was in his study with the paint. He gave her paint, and she was like, I don't really want to paint. I would rather be able to leave this house, please." Yeah. And he was like, "No, go fuck yourself." And then he exploded everything. And she, like, had a shield up, and he was like, "Put your shield down." And she was like, "I don't know what you're talking about." Because she didn't realize she could shield. But it's just like, if she didn't shield herself that first time, she may have died. It's actually
bad.
Wild. It's so wild. So wild.
So, like, after Lucien is like, "What have you done?" He takes Feyre to, like, get her cleaned up. She has this, like, a bunch of little nicks on her face and neck, but then she also has one really big gash on her cheekbone, and then she's obviously gonna be, like, bruised and banged up from being, like, attacked with a desk.
Yeah. Fucking desk.
Yeah, so she goes to bathe and chats with Rhys again. And I just think she's using the bond thing a little bit more than she said she would. Like, she explained at the beginning that, you know, she's not supposed to use it. But we keep seeing her use it.
Yeah. I think the reason she uses it now, though, is because he knew she was in danger. So she wants to be like, hey-o, I did this on purpose. Like, not, and again, I can't say on purpose, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so the next day she goes for a ride with the sentries that were on door duty yesterday by Tamlin's office. So, like, they saw and heard the whole thing.
Yeah.
Their names are Braun and Hart. They also decided to, like, as a group, they delayed their trip to the third hole in the wall because, and I quote, Feyre's bruises are still too bruisey to go.
Yeah. That's the quote. Still too bruisey.
No, it's not. It's my quote. I've quoted myself. So, I guess she's thinking back to the night before at dinner. Tamlin apologized to her, and she accepted his apology, of course. And her and Ianthe also made up.
Of course.
And she makes sure to tell everybody in earshot how lucky the territory is to have both Tamlin and Ianthe guarding their walls. So she's, like, sucking up hardcore.
Yeah.
However, that night, 7 Naga get on the grounds and are hunted down before anything happens. But on them, they actually have the stolen gate keys.
Ooh, interesting.
Yes. Ianthe had actually given them the vision that the Naga were coming. So she saved everyone by giving them the warning. So Ianthe is showing how useful she is to have around.
Yeah.
Tamlin decides that they have to punish the guard because he let his keys get taken. And they're sort of saying, well, you must have fallen asleep. And he's like, I don't understand how this happened. Like, I never fall asleep. But Feyre knew that Ianthe had planned this entire thing. So Feyre had used her magic to track Ianthe on the night of the summer solstice to, I assume it's like the guardhouse, where she actually used her magic to put the guard to sleep and then stole his keys. And then she handed them over to the Naga and got them to attack so that she could have the vision that they were coming and save the day.
It's just wild.
Yeah. Again, like, manipulation upon manipulation here.
Yeah.
So I guess the guard is, this is like the next day. It's after her horsey ride. They're outside. I don't know if it's the stables or the guardhouse or whatever. And the guard is all tied up. And Feyre sees, I guess she picks through the guard's brain and sees that he has a memory of seeing Ianthe that night right before she put him to sleep. So she releases that memory for him, like puts it up front and center so that he remembers. And he tells everyone, he's like, no, wait, I remember. It was Ianthe. This is what she did. And, like, again, he's all tied up, like, ready to be, quote unquote, punished / whipped. And Ianthe's like, oh my God, like, I thought he would have more honor than this and, like, take his punishment, like, honorably. But, like, he's just trying to make up a story so that he saves himself some pain. But Feyre sort of is like, I will listen to his story. Like, if he wants to tell me his story, I'll listen.
Yeah.
And she tries to convince Tamlin not to strike. But it's almost like she is on one side telling him something, then Ianthe's on the other side telling him something. Then Jurian and the twins are in the back, and they're sort of commenting on how weak the court is, which he hates,
Mm-hmm.
and he needs to have power and control. So he takes Ianthe's word, even though Feyre is arguing, like, maybe we should wait on this. Maybe we should hear him out before you go ahead and whip him.
Yeah.
And, like, she even says that she can see that Tamlin can tell that Ianthe's full of shit.
Yeah.
Like, he knows Ianthe set this up. But he's already made this big show of punishment. He can't take it away now without seeming weak in front of Hybern.
Yeah, which is wild.
Yeah. So because he decides to listen to Ianthe, all of the guards see him taking Ianthe's side over them. Yeah. And, like, he used to be one of them. So they sort of always had faith in his loyalty. Feyre sort of admits, and this is one of her, not her finest hour in terms of, I'll explain why. She says that she, like, pushed Ianthe into it. Like, she orchestrated the entire thing and manipulated everything to make her want to feel useful. And, like, she might have, like, let a few nuggets of, like, information slip here and there to give her the idea.
Mm-hmm.
And she, I guess Tamlin, like, just grabs the whip and starts telling the guy to, like, brace himself. So Feyre sort of, like, backs up until she's chest to back with Lucien, and, like, she gets comfort from him as Tamlin cracks the whip. And he's gonna get 21 lashes, which is so many.
So many.
But, like, I guess Feyre says this is not her finest moment because this poor guard is being whipped, so, like, he is enduring pain. And not only that, he is now being dishonored because he made a mistake. So, like, Feyre said that, yeah, she sort of pushed Ianthe into this and, like, orchestrated a lot of it. And she did, which is now causing this guy to suffer, and she feels bad.
Yeah, for sure. But she's not the one that made the decision to whip him. But I do understand her feeling bad, of course.
Like, she wants the whipping to happen so that it puts, like, it's a part of her plan.
Yeah, and she's, like, there sympathetic, and she knows she's playing a part. She knows that she's the one that's, like, not that she wouldn't do it anyway, because I honestly think that as a person, she would do the same thing that she does. But it is still a part that she is playing. So it's hard. Yeah. So Ianthe isn't done. She, like, goes back to the manor, and she really thinks she did something here. Like, she really thinks that she, like, accomplished something.
Like, sort of, like, inserted her authority / presence.
Yeah. But, like, as the reader, we all know that, like, Feyre orchestrated this whole thing, which is wild. But it's just funny, because Ianthe's like, yeah, I'm taking back a piece of my whatever, and she just didn't.
Yeah.
So yeah, everyone goes back to the manor, but Feyre stays, and she helps, like, tend to the sentry. So there's Healer patching him up, and she's, like, carrying away the water and, like, assisting.
Which shocks me that, like, no one else thought to do it.
Yeah. I just find it so crazy that as a punishment, you're physically going to whip someone, and then you're gonna, like, have, and I know, like, the healer isn't, like, healing him, but, like, you're then gonna have a healer attend to them. Like, it's just such a juxtaposition in my head that I'm like, if the, I don't know, physical punishment is just so wild anyway.
But I also feel like maybe for Tamlin anyway, even though I think he's a garbage dumpster fire, I feel like for him, the punishment is the act of the pain itself during the whipping, not the after effects. So,
Yeah,
like, I feel like for him, after the actual whipping, the pain, like, it's over, it's done. So, like,
yeah,
like, the pain shouldn't continue because he's already withstood it.
yeah, yeah. It's just interesting, but Feyre does stay, and she stays to help, which I also think she probably would have done anyway. Like, I
Yeah.
know she is orchestrating a bigger thing here, but I do think that this is in her character line of something she would do.
Yeah. 100%.
Um, Two of the sentries that you mentioned earlier, Braun and Hart, like walk her back to the house, and she thanks them by name, and she apologizes to them that she couldn't stop the other sentry from being whipped, and they apologized to her for not helping her, like back before she came back when she was struggling so much. So they really are starting to be on her side.
And realize that what they did was a dick move.
Yeah. Um, Ianthe and Tamlin are going with the party to see the wall the next day. So basically everybody's going, I guess. Like there's nobody left behind. Um, Feyre packs her bag, but Alice brings her a third bag she had packed for her, and she says, and she like sits Feyre down and brushes her hair, and Alice tells her that she's going back to the summer court tomorrow. So that's kind of sad.
Bye, Alice.
Yeah. Alice wishes Feyre well, and Feyre tells her not to mention that she knows her when she's in the summer court because of the blood ruby, which is kind of
And
funny.
but I also love how well Alice takes it. It's like,
Yeah,
there's a blood ruby on my head. And she's like, okay, cool.
yeah. When it's
I
like
won't talk about you.
it's like a huge deal. um, Alice tells her basically that she'll always have one friend in summer court, and Feyre says Alice will have a friend in her court as well. And she knows that Alice knows that she means the night court.
Yeah. I just, I think Alice is very smart to also know that everything is going down today.
Yeah, it's
She's like, I'm peacing out. I'm getting out of here
yeah,
today.
it's very smart on her part, and I'm glad she does. We don't really see her later, do we?
I don't think so. I don't remember. Maybe we'll keep an eye out for
Mm-hmm.
this. I do think she is mentioned
Yeah,
later
I
on.
hope I hope we get her in future books, but I don't think we get her in any of the books that are already
No.
out. So the next morning, they're winnowing. So each person has to carry other people. It's kind of a slow process, but Feyre says that her magic and winnowing feel harder than they normally do to like connect with. So that's interesting, and we shouldn't think into that.
Mm-hmm.
They get to this hole in the wall, and Feyre asks to share a tent with Ianthe because she wants to mend the rift after the whipping. And really, it's because A, she doesn't want to share a tent with Tamlin, and B, if she were to share a tent with Tamlin, Ianthe would share a tent with Lucien, and she's a sexual predator. So
Yes. Yeah.
I do.
Just like, I can't imagine, and I guess it's part of him, like, trying to fix things and be better, but I'm saying alpha male in quotation marks and with all of the eye rolls. But an alpha male like Tamlin, I can't imagine him being okay with Feyre choosing not to sleep with him. And maybe it's a bit different because they never sleep together anyway because she has her own
Yeah.
room. But like, I don't know. I was once in a relationship with a really crappy, creepy alpha male. And he was not okay with, like, if we were in the same area and we were going to be sleeping, it had to be together.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Because, like, if I were in a relationship with that kind of person, and I was like, I'm going to sleep with this girl, they'd be like, so now you are going to date this girl, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Yeah, that is interesting. I also kind of feel like he just wanted to himself if he wasn't going to sleep with her. I don't feel like he'd want to sleep with Lucien either, but it's interesting.
Probably make Lucien sleep outside.
Yeah. So they sleep in the tent together, and Feyre wakes up in the morning, and she, like, sits up and has a knife in her hand. And she wants to kill Auntie. But she knows she really can't. She also thinks she must have been born without the ability to forgive, especially when it's somebody that, like, hurts the people she loves, which is just interesting fact, and, like, obviously makes sense. I think this is a, like, extreme example. I don't think anyone would ever forgive Auntie for this.
No. But also, like, Ianthe's been a bitch this entire time.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I don't know.
Yeah. Ianthe wakes up and just, like, looks at Feyre, who is sitting up and holding a knife. And Feyre's like, you can't be too careful when you're sharing a camp with enemies. And Ianthe responds, Hybern isn't their enemy. And Feyre just, like, smiles at her. And I'm like, so creepy.
It's like, she wasn't talking about Hybern.
Yeah.
She was talking about you bitch.
So that day, I guess, Lucien and Tamlin show the twins the hole in the wall, and Feyre, like, watches them pretty closely while eating an apple, and Hybern wants to, like, use the hole in the wall that's closest to the manor because it's easier. They don't have to, they'll be closer to Tamlin's territory, supplies, all of that shit.
Yeah.
Feyre kind of, like, cuts in a few times, and she's kind of, like, goading them. She's trying to get more information, and they basically tell her that their army is 200,000, and they tell her that they have allies, and they list them.
Yeah, like other regions on the continent.
Yeah, so, like, this is kind of the information that she was looking for, and she's like, well, I did everything I could, I set everything in motion, I have specifics, I'm gonna peace out.
Yeah.
Tamlin and Jurian are off hunting. Ianthe is apparently praying. The twins are at the wall. And Lucien is off somewhere. So she's like, oh, and she sent the extra sentries to get her water to make a poultice for her bruises. Which is like, it's not funny because obviously she still has bruises and it's awful. But she is using it to, like, they left and they were, like, seething with anger at Tamlin for hurting her.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is, but, like, also, can you imagine, like, how you slip that information in without it being obvious? Like, can you go get me some water, please? I'd like to make a poultice for my bruises. Like, that just seems like such an obvious, like, oh,
direction.
Poor me. Yeah. Like, help me. I'm in pain.
Yeah. Feyre already has her bags repacked, so she just has one instead of the 3 that she came with. She has the intel, and Tamlin's people don't believe in him, so, like, this is it. This is the moment. She knows that Tamlin and Ianthe will lie about where she is, and she has, like, a trap set up in a sentry's mind that he'll remember that she fled for her life running from the twins, and, like, I guess tell people that, and that will also turn people on Tamlin.
Mm-hmm. Well, because especially after the moment with the summer solstice, like, everyone sees her as almost like a goddess, right? Like, she accepted the god's blessing, and she, like, glowed. So they all are, like, worshiping her almost, right? Like, she's the curse breaker. She's the cauldron blessed. So, like, you know, they're obviously going to, not obviously, but they're seeing her And on the other, like, she also saved everyone.
Yeah.
Like, originally from under the mountain.
Yeah.
Like, she's, you know. So, yeah, I think they are going to be real mad at this trap.
Yes. And she kind of thinks, like, no one in Tamlin's court is going to stand for an alliance with Hybern after they, like, know that. So she takes her pack. She takes Tamlin's bandolier of Valyrian knives, which is just kind of funny. And she starts to leave, but she hears Lucien say back off, and then a female laugh. And she knows she should just go, but she can't do that. She can't leave Lucien to Ianthe. Which I think ends up being the right decision, because I think she would have died without Lucien later on. But Feyre knows that Ianthe is super jealous of the attention that Feyre's been paying to Lucien. Like, Lucien is telling her that he doesn't want to be with a female, but Feyre has been, like, playing up and touching him and intimate with him. Like,
yeah. Well, he likes to say he's a maiden male.
Yes.
Right? So, like, he's not interested in any other female attention at this point because he's mated to Elaine.
Yeah. So she's pissed about that. She's batshit crazy. Feels entitled to people. So Feyre goes over to them and she sees, like, his hands are bound to the tree with a blue stone from Hybern, which nullifies magic. Which I think we saw in the last book with Rhys was bound.
Yes. Yeah.
And Feyre just says, that's enough. And Ianthe's like, we're just playing a game. Like, mind your own business.
Yeah, we'll be back later.
Yeah. And it's just, she's so fucked.
She doesn't understand the word consent.
No, not at all. And Feyre then, like, attacks Ianthe mentally, and she, like, just takes over and tells her to take her hands off of him, and then the shackles off them, and then to pick up a rock and put her hand on the boulder, and she tells her to smash her hand until she says to stop, which is so gross.
But also, I love it.
Oh, yeah.
I love Ianthe's, like, getting her comeuppance at this point.
Yeah, same.
I would not have been as nice because Feyre is a little bit nice after she...
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Does her spiel, which you're about to do.
Yeah. So Feyre tells her she'll never touch another person against their will, and that's kind of why she's bashing her hand, is because it's, like, symbolic. Her hands are touching people that don't want her to. And she tells her that she's going to forget that this part happened, that Feyre told her to bash her hand. She'll say that she fell, like, she could see a healer to set it, but not to erase the scars. And, like, every time she sees the scars, she'll be scared for her life and think of, like, and know that, like, Feyre will kill her if she does anything else, kind of thing.
Yeah. So this is what I mean. Like, the fact that she's like, oh, you can definitely get a healer to set your bones. And I'm like, I wouldn't. I would have left that hand completely useless because she loves how beautiful she is. She thinks that she is, like, God's gift. Right?
Yeah.
So, like, I feel like you should have made her not be able to see a healer.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
And, like, give her a mauled hand.
Yeah. I don't really know if we see it later, her hand.
We do.
Feyre eventually does obviously tell her to stop and to kneel until someone finds her. And she also tells her, like, she almost slit her throat this morning. And every day since she had her sister's turn. Which is surprising. Yeah.
Go Feyre.
Branna shows up until, like, they both just, like, walk in. And she tells Lucien she's a Damati. And Feyre, like, they also know that Feyre is planning to leave now. So they kind of are like saying that like they've seen that she's been plotting all week because they've also been plotting. So
Yeah.
Feyre kind of knows like Lucien isn't going to leave this field. Like they're not going to say all this stuff to Feyre and then let him live.
Yeah, like if she abandons him, they're gonna kill him.
Yeah. So Branna then asks her if she didn't notice the headaches and how hard mental bonds have been lately. And Dagden says the apple will set in within 10 minutes. And she's just like, what the fuck are they talking about? But they tell her they've been putting Feyre in all of the food. And their plan originally was to like slip into someone's head and tell them to do it, but they didn't even need to do that. Ianthe was just like, yeah, I'll fuck these people up. Which is just so wild, because like Tamlin's eating that too. Like, doesn't she care? It's just so diabolical. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with it?
But like also very cunning of the twins to leave Feybane apples from Hybern's. Like they brought that shit with them.
Yeah.
Like that's genius.
Yeah.
Diabolical, but genius.
Yeah. Yeah, so Dagden lunges for Lucien's mind, but Feyre, like, blocks it. And yeah, they tell her that they brought this apple from the king's garden, and it'll knock her power out for a few days. And she knows, like, the time that she can still use her magic is running out, and she can, like, feel that it's getting even harder. But she can't leave Lucien to die there. And he even tells her that she should go. But, like, do you think he thinks he can beat them, or does he know that if she leaves, he's dead?
I think he knows, but I think he's trying to be a good person, I guess, and, like, sacrificing.
Yeah.
I don't know. Or maybe he hopes that they wouldn't kill him just because he's Tamlin's right-hand man. I don't know.
Yeah, and I guess, like, I feel like everything he does in this part of this book is about his mate, and, like, that changes after. But I feel like he's also like, I can't let my mate's sister die. There's a bit of that. But Feyre, like, winnows and strikes Dagden, but he's clearly a warrior. He's been a warrior for, like, thousands of years. So he fights back and he's trying to wear her down, but Feyre's like, I know his weakness. So she throws fire at Branna, and like, he freaks the fuck out, basically.
Yeah, because, she set his sister on fire.
It's not great, but their attachment...
But, again, very smart.
100%. Their attachment is crazy, and Branna wasn't expecting it at all. So she goes to, like, go after Feyre, but Lucien blocks her and chops her head off. Which is just, like, crazy. And Dagden then is obviously like furious, so he goes for Lucien, but Feyre winnows and like gets between them and just stabs him in the eye, which I hate. I hate eye things, but it's wild.
Yeah. I don't know. A hard pass on the eye things.
Feyre then orders Ianthe to say that. Feyre killed the twins after they attacked her, and that she and Tamlin stood by and did nothing, and Feyre had to flee the court to, like, save her life.
I like that she's so quick. She's such a quick thinker.
I agree. So obviously Lucien has realized that she's going to the Night Court, and he says, I'm coming with you. And she...
I would have said you're not welcome.
I know, like, and she almost does, but then she's like, she's hurting from the apple poison, which is so Sleeping Beauty, and I didn't really notice it before.
Oh, yeah.
Snow White. Wait, which one? Snow White. Yeah.
Snow White, yes.
Like
You're
the fact that it
genius.
is an apple too.
Oh my
I didn't really
god.
think of it before.
You're so smart. You are so smart.
Well, the first one was like Beauty and the Beast. It even said it was like a Beauty and the Beast retelling. So like there's so many, and like the second one you might even be able to think is a bit like a Persephone and Hades thing. And this one part is very Snow White.
It is very Snow White.
It's fun to see like behind the curtains and see like what inspired it. Likely, obviously, we don't know for sure. But yeah.
But like, I just think it's so smart to like pepper in those little moments from other things. Like, I completely missed this until
I
now.
Did too.
So it's
until, like this read through.
You just thought of it. Like, I just think it's so clever. Like, it's such clever writing to tuck those things in.
Yeah, I agree. So yeah, she's hurting from the apple already, and she knows that she's not going to get far. And he's trying to get back to Elaine. So she's just like, I don't want to do this argument. I need to get on the road. If he comes, he comes.
Yeah.
And he does. They make it to the foothills like hours later, and they're both completely out of magic, which is just interesting. Because like Feyre was given this apple that was like specifically made to take out her magic. Like, did he eat one too, or
I know?
Is this just does he just have less magic in general than she does? Like, it's just interesting.
I think he does, but I do think it is a coincidence that they both happen to run out of magic around the same time, like, without us knowing if he also ate one of the poison apples. Or is it just, like, from the powder? Like, did they just give him an... Yeah.
It's interesting. And convenient for plot. Because, like, hers is gone for days because of this apple, but his is also gone for days. Because, like, he can winnow in the regular world.
And doesn't he have some fire? He has some fire power, doesn't he? Yeah. So it's all gone.
Interesting. Feyre.
Everything is interesting.
So Feyre wants to take a door through like to another court, and the only options that are nearby are summer and autumn. And she's like, I can't go to summer. They'll literally kill me on sight because of the blood ruby.
Yeah.
So they need to go through autumn, which is bad for Lucien because that is his court that he has fled from basically, and he knows his father is an ass.
Yeah. I know. He's like, no, we can't go through autumn. My dad will like kill us. And she's like, well, I can't go through summer, so we're going through autumn.
I like how like she doesn't give a fuck. She's just like, this is what we're doing. If you're coming with me, this is what you're doing. Like, just don't come with me then. Lucien basically says he knows a place that they can lie low until they can winnow again, and they go through the door, and there are no guards there, which is odd. But it's because Feyre had like slipped into their minds earlier to get this pathway cleared. So I guess normally there are guards.
But like how and
when? I don't know. We don't get any of that. But she just says she slipped into their heads. And
I know.
Like, did they only come out because they were near here? Like, or are they always there? I don't understand.
But, like, are they Sprinc Court guards that guard the doors and, like, she managed to figure out their rotation? Maybe. And, like, is it like that? Or is it...
Oh, that actually would make sense. Because that's what I kind of think it is. Like, I do think it's Sprinc Court guards. So, yeah, maybe she was, like, last time they were at the manor, she was like, leave this place.
Yeah.
That could be it.
Well, that's what we're going to go with.
It's just interesting because Lucien says he knows a place where they can lie low until they can winnow, but that's not what they do at all.
No, I know. It's
So,
really
like, why wouldn't you
bizarre.
just sit until you can win out?
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, they don't do that in this one, but we'll get to that. Feyre kind of thinks like she thought about taking the Sprinc Court like for the it's too far away from the Night Court to be able to like guard both, and she knew that it would be like it's not a great
Yeah.
move if you're looking to have allies. Like obviously the other courts would frown on that and like probably think that they're just trying to get
Yeah.
more property type thing.
Like conquer the other territories.
Lucien kind of tells her she was right. The girl she was died under the mountain, which is just so like so silly. Like fuck off,
Yes.
Lucien.
But
She did.
she
Yeah.
also literally died under the
Yeah,
mountain.
and like
So
she's the one that said
he's
it.
not
She's
wrong.
the one that was like, "I'm not that same person anymore," and nobody wanted to believe it. So like, yeah, good job. She's been telling you this, and you just ignored it. And then she
Yeah. Jackass.
and then she swears she can hear a roar in the distance, which is probably Tamlin losing his shit because she has left. Yes.
He has no self-control.
So then we get to part 2 of the book, Cursebreaker. And they're basically sneaking through the Autumn Court, and Feyre kind of has faith that Rhys is going to feel that the bomb is gone, so he'll try to find her. So she's like, everything's going to be fine. He'll find me. All good. So Lucien takes her to a cave, and there's a fire pit, and there's like some dusty old blankets there, and Lucien used to stay here, I guess, when he was out hunting and some shit. I don't know. But it's Lucien's cave, basically, and he had left some supplies there. So, Lucien's, like, kind of ready to get into all this now. And he asks if she really planned this, and she just says yes. And then she knows she kind of needs to throw out all the food, so she's going through the pack, and she's like, gotta get rid of all this, we can't eat any of it. And he obviously wants some more information. And he says he knew she was lying ever since she released the light. So, at the end of the last book, like, they were all stuck in Hybern's castle, basically. And she released a white light, which was her Dawn Court magic, and, like, broke the wards. And she said that is when she, like, snapped back and was, like, out of Rhys's thrall type thing. But Lucien says, like, he has a friend from the Dawn Court, and they have the same power, and it doesn't do whatever Feyre said it does. Which is interesting. You're like, that's quite the secret to just keep. And that's what she said. She's like, then why didn't you tell anyone? And he says he couldn't kick Tamlin while he was already down, and he knew he'd never see her again if he said that Feyre was lying.
Ugh. But can I just say, so earlier we talked about how dumb Lucien was being for just, like, letting Feyre, like, set him up in the physical relationship department. Like, you know what I mean? He was, like, letting her get close and blah, blah, blah. The fact that he also knows that she was lying about everything.
Yeah, like, how did he not see that she was orchestrating this rift between him and Tamlin? And, like, yeah, it doesn't really make any sense.
Yeah. Right? Like, especially considering he knew that she was not what she claimed to be. Like, why? How could you not see it even more so then?
Yeah. And I kind of think part of it is that, like, he had suspicions, but he didn't know until now that that was right. Like, I don't think he actually knew for sure that she was lying.
Right.
But yeah, him mentioning her, he knows he'll never see her again, kind of pisses Feyre off. She knows, like he's here because of his mate, not because he realized, like, Tamlin was wrong, but because he thinks he's, like, owed Elaine. And he kind of counters, like, his mate is in enemy's hands right now. Like, I'm allowed to be worried. And she's like, if I thought that my sisters were in danger, no king or high lord would stop me from saving them. So,
Yeah. But, like, this is part of, like, I get that Lucien doesn't yet understand that Rhys is not who he says, who he, like, portrays to everybody. But again, like, how could he not, like, the fact that he's still calling him an enemy when he is with the High Lord's mate? I don't know. Like, you would think that you would, like, maybe not call him your enemy, like, and maybe second guess, like if she loves him and wants to get back to him, maybe he's not so bad.
Yeah. I guess it is hard to, like, they have histories and, like, he's always been his enemy type thing. So, like, I do understand, but it is dumb. Like, he should have realized that if Feyre actually thought that her sisters were in trouble, she wouldn't have been at the Sprinc Court. She wouldn't have been fine. Like, she's not powerless anymore. She is a badass. She would have done it.
Yeah. But, again, Lucien's not that smart.
No, apparently not. Lucien kind of just says, like, his father is going to kill her for the power she took and knows how to use. So, like, she threw fire at Branna earlier. I guess that's kind of what it's talking about. So, clearly, he's realized that she trained while she was gone.
Yeah.
And Feyre kind of, like, shuts down the conversation because Lucien does kind of want to keep talking. And, like, he asked about her plans for him and Tamlin, and she does actually tell him that she debated on just killing Tamlin, but she knows it's not what's, like, the best course for the court. So then they kind of, like, lie down and go to sleep-ish.
Yeah.
But Feyre doesn't trust Lucien, so she just lies down and rests, I guess, instead of sleeping. So the next morning, obviously, they are both exhausted because they didn't sleep, and they still don't have their magic back. So I guess they need food. That they probably couldn't just stay there. They need food.
I guess, but I feel like they could have, like, easily just camped out for a few days and, like, gone out and gotten food and then gone back.
I agree.
Like, I don't know.
Completely agree. I just don't understand why the trek needed to happen. But I guess
it's like Lord of the Rings trek.
It is.
Like, they're trekking through the mountains.
Yeah. Like, when they get to the winter range, the mountain range of, like, the Winter Court, all I can think about is that scene from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, where they're all, like, wading waist deep through snow, except for Legolas, who's, like, walking on top of it.
So yeah, Feyre tells Lucien that they're going north, and he's like, my father's court is north. We can't go there. And she's just like, well, we are, and they do, so I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that she's just not listening to him at all.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe she should a little bit.
Yeah.
Just based on what happens.
Well, like I said earlier, I think they should just stay there.
Yes.
So they have a bit of a, like, cute moment, maybe. It's just kind of interesting. They go to a stream, and Lucien just, like, rolls up his pants, gets in the water, and just, like, grabs 2 fish. And Feyre's there, like, trying to make a fishing rod out of stuff. And it was just, like, interesting. I didn't really take Lucien for being able to, like, just catch a fish. And it kind of, I feel like this is maybe a sign. Like, that doesn't seem like an autumn court thing.
No, like, living off the land.
Yeah, and, like, being able to catch fish. Like, autumn court is
hoity-toity.
Yeah. And, like, cold. Like, I know it's not freezing or anything, but, like, it's not the time of year that you would want to be living outside all the time, really. That's something more like
Yeah.
a warmer war movie.
But I guess if they have fire powers, then I guess they can just be warm whenever they want. I feel like they probably run a bit warm anyway.
Yeah, that's true. They end up hiking for 5 days, and she says it takes 3 days to pass through Baron's seat. Which I don't really know what that means. Like, is that his, like...
It's like his...
riding?
Like, no, I think they mean, like... So, when we're in the Sprinc Court, remember, there's, like, a gate they have to pass through, and then there's, like, it's like Tamlin's Manor, but, like, all of that land... So I think it's a similar thing. Like, it's, like, he doesn't have just, like, a half acre with his house on it. I think he's got, like, a large territory for his living. Mm-hmm. Like, I would say, obviously, he's got a shit ton of land. And I would just say his house is on it. And his seat is just, like, where the land that he claims as his own for him to live on.
It's just, like, so they're Fae, and, like, just thinking of how far they can walk in a day is, I'm assuming we're thinking, like, 50 kilometers a day, at least, like...
I was thinking he probably has, like, 100 square miles, 100 square kilometers.
Yeah.
No, miles and kilometers are two different things.
It'd be 160 kilometers. So that's basically what I'm saying, is 150. Like, if they walk 50-ish kilometers a day, 150, so 100 square miles. Yeah. Which is insane.
But it also, I feel like it tracks for his, because they chat about his house, right? And say that it's so big it takes you like a half day just to walk from one end to another of his dad's house. And like they just seem like they're very like pretentious and like want a lot of land. So like to me it makes sense that they would have this huge vast property, I'll say. You know.
Yeah.
Just because they're I don't know, pretentious people that feel like, oh, we're the lords of these lands. We need so much of it for ourselves.
Which is kind of the vibe that you get. Like, it doesn't seem like any of the people that live around here like them very much.
No. Well, they're a bunch of D-bags.
It's true. But, like, they're walking pretty far. Like, if we do say it's about, like, 50 kilometers a day or so, like, 5 days of that's insane. Like, this is a lot. So, obviously, they have some time to talk, Feyre and Lucien. And one of the conversations they have, they talk about Lucien being the, like, 7th son of a High Lord. And he kind of says, like, he's not needed or wanted. She does ask him if he would want to rule. And he says, like, the bloodshed alone wouldn't be worth it because he'd have to kill all of his brothers to rule. Like,
But, like, would he, though? Because, like, didn't they say that the High Lord magic works? It's not always the oldest son that gets it. It's whoever displays the High Lord. Because Tamlin was the same thing, right? Like... He wanted to be a musician or something like that, and then he was just a soldier. But as he grew older, people noticed that the power was like just drawn to him, and he was just bigger and stronger. So like the magic chose him. So like if his dad died and there was multiple brothers alive, like it's not like he would have to kill all of his brothers to get the power. It might go to him anyway.
So I think he's just like, to make sure that I got the power, I would have to kill all of them, which I guess is true. And he also says, like, he doesn't want the festering court. Like, these people are awful too, so he doesn't want this power. But, like, he doesn't say no. he just says he wouldn't want to kill all of his brothers to get it, and he wouldn't want this court. He doesn't say he wouldn't want to be a High Lord, which is interesting for what happens later in this book. He also tells her, like, the regular people in the court don't trust him, since he, I guess, was with Jasminda, and she was, like, a regular person, and then because of him, she was killed by his family, and he wasn't able to protect her, so, like, the people hate him for that, which is kind of just, like,
a
hate
dick
him
move.
for being a royal, don't hate him for, like, being assaulted by his family and ran out of town. Like, it just seems not, I don't know.
Yeah, like, hate the dad for ordering her to die, not Lucien for not being able to protect her. It was like 7-on-1.
Loved her. Like, it just seems kind of shitty, but anyway, that was their conversation about that. They end up getting to the mountain range, and it is border between Autumn and the Winter Court, and Feyre kind of thinks, like, they'll be safe when they're in the Winter Court. Like, it's just what she thinks.
But, like, I think she's right to think that. Like, you would never think that they would cross borders willy-nilly, like, in pursuit of something or someone.
Yes. So Lucien kind of struggles with climbing this hill that reminds us of Lord of the Rings. But Feyre is, like, much more fit than him, which I love.
Which I also love. I'm like, yes. And it's like, how did you not notice this before?
And he does comment on it. He says, like, clearly she's been well trained, and, like, her killing the twins showed him that, like, she knows how to fight. And he thanks her for helping him with Ianthe, because she like, had him chained to the tree, which is just wild.
And had his pants undone. Like, she was fully about to have sex with it. Without his consent. And a part of me is like, obviously he would not have been into it. So, like, would he have remained, flaccid. And you know where I'm going. Yes, would he have remained flaccid? And if so, how would she have worked with that? Like,
no.
You can't, I don't care who you are, there's not a whole lot you can do if it stays flaccid. So, like, how would she have made that work? Like, why would you want someone to not be into it? I know that that's opening a huge can of, like, why do people sexually assault people and blah, blah, blah. I get it. But, like, why would you want to work with something flaccid?
Yeah, I don't, it doesn't, it's just wild. I just can't understand why she, like, if she feels entitled to him, which, why? Who knows? But yeah, it's too much.
But, like, I'm sure she can find somebody who's actually willing.
Oh, 100%.
You know what I mean? Like, go find someone willing if you're in the mood.
Yeah.
If you have a hankering.
She probably couldn't in that forest at that moment, but it's like, who is she going to sleep with? Jurian?
Maybe. I don't know.
No,
like, rub
I
one out
completely agree. So, back to this. Oh, I do like that Lucien thanks her. Like, she did help him. Yeah. I am happy that he sees that she could have just left him. Which would have been so shitty, but...
Well, But, like, at least he's realizing that she's not as terrible a person as he is. She helped him, even though he would not help her.
Even though he did help her unwittingly, so. they stay in a cave that night, and as Feyre sleeps, she slips into Lucien's mind, and he's just up, like, guarding, basically. But she must be getting her magic back a bit, because she's able to slip into his mind. Yeah. She wakes up to a hand gripping her face, and the words, "Look who we found." And it's three of Lucien's brothers, and they, like, put their knives to Feyre's throat, and the other ones put their knives to, like, Lucien's throat. So this is not good. And they say that they're taking them back to their father, Baron.
He wants to meet them. Lovely.
Yeah, I'm sure that's all he wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
Lucien says Eris's name, which is his brother, and Feyre thinks of Moore, because Moore was basically sold to Eris, but then she slept with Cassian so that she would be
impure.
Yeah.
Because virginity, they worship at the altar of the hymen.
It's true. So, yeah, then Eris didn't want her, and it's a whole thing. And apparently no, I'm not going to say that. Anyway, it's a whole thing, and we got it, I think, last book, and we, I guess, get more into it in future books, I think.
Yeah.
But Feyre is immediately pissed, and she just wants to kill Eris because he hurt her friend. So she tries to reach her magic, she catches Lucien's eye, and she waits until, like, Eris starts to walk forward with her and is, like, a bit unbalanced, and then she elbows him in the nose and slams flames into the other two brothers, and she, like, puts up a wall between the three of them and her and Lucien.
Yeah, like trapping them in the back of the cave.
Yeah, so, like, firewall. Which is similar to Fireball. Sorry.
Yes, it is.
So Feyre and Lucien lose. Oh god. They use, like, any tiny bit of power that they have and collapse the ceiling so that his brothers are, like, stuck there. And then they run. But they have nothing. They have no supplies. They have no food. They have no weapons. Lucien's cloak was, like, left back there because he put it on Feyre while she was sleeping and she was shivering. So he is, like, fucked.
Yeah.
And they're in the Winter Court. Like, this is cold anyway. They're screwed.
Yes.
Feyre, like, she has a bit of magic, so she, like, tries to, like, yell out down the Bond to Reese, or, like, grow some wings, or winnow, but she can't reach enough magic to do any of those things. And, like we said before, she kind of thinks, like, if they reach the Winter Court, they'll be safe. Like, Baron's sons aren't going to go into the Winter Court, so they just need to get to the Winter Court. They're good. So the traveling here is, we don't get a whole lot of it, but it's obviously awful. Like, it's freezing, and they're fucked. But, like, they're coming up onto, like, a dangerous part of the path, and they're like, we need to stop for the night because we can't do this in the dark, and also we need to get warm. So they end up finding a cave, but there's no wood around, so they can't make a fire, so they have to snuggle for body heat.
Aww.
And, like,
snugglies.
Yeah, and they still only have one cloak, which is not great. But they're just, like, sitting in the back of the cave snuggling, and Lucien asks Feyre to tell him about Elaine. So she tells him, like, Elaine loves to garden. She, like, apparently, according to Feyre, acts purebred in every other way, but she'll, like, get down in the dirt and tend to flowers, and that's, like, her one thing that isn't purebred about her, which is just, like...
But she also can't grow vegetables.
Yeah, right? And the way she talks about Elaine is kind of in the past tense, and Lucien even says that. He's like, you're talking about her like she's dead. And Feyre's just like, I don't know what the cauldron did to her. But, like, she does know Elaine can never go back to her old life. So everything that she has lived for up to this point is taken away from her. So, like, Feyre is worried about how she's going to feel now, basically. She also tells Lucien that Elaine is engaged to a human lord's son who hates fairies and is, like, actively hunting them down. So it's really not a good time to be Elaine. Lucien just says he wants to see her once to see if she's worth fighting for. And then he wants to ask how Rhys did it, being mated to Feyre when she was engaged in sleeping with somebody else. So, like, their situations are similar, except for Elaine can't choose to really go back to her fiance, whereas Feyre could. But yeah, Lucien is, like, kind of seeing that it's similar.
But, like, also must sort of get a little bit more context on that time when Feyre was in the Sprinc Court and sick and, like, not doing well. And, like, now he's understanding what Rhys was going through at that time. And, like, I hope that he realizes that, oh, he purposefully, like, didn't come get her for, like, was it 3 months or something?
Yeah.
Like, he just didn't call in the bargain at all. And, like, I hope that Lucien sort of realizes that and, like, purposefully stayed away, even though he didn't have to.
He doesn't, so.
Oh, great. Awesome.
Like, the start of next week is so annoying. Like, he's having this moment right now where he's like, oh, we're similar situation-wise. And then next week he's just like, fuck you. And I'm like, didn't we just have this growth? Like, what are you doing? But he knows their situations are similar, but he's still pissed. Right here, too, because he asks her when she stopped loving Tamlin and if all of this was going on before she left. And yeah, she tells him that she didn't touch Rhys for, like, months after she left Tamlin. Whether he believes that, I don't know. But she also says, like, you guys, like, him, Lucien, and Tamlin, like, abandoned her before she physically left anyway. And that, like, he should understand how she feels because he doesn't belong in the Sprinc Court either. And he is made for more, just like she feels like she is. So the next day they make it to the Winter Court, and she does have a bit more power, but still it's not enough to do anything useful, which is unfortunate. But, like, I guess she could reach her fire magic while she was in the Autumn Court, and now that she's in the Winter Court, she can kind of reach a bit of ice and, I guess, snow magic.
Yeah. It's court specific.
Yeah. So...
But this is also so remember, like, Dagden and Branna said that the apple she ate would take her magic out for, like, 3-4 days. It's been, like, a week.
Yeah, it's been a long-ass time.
Yeah. I feel like maybe the apple was a bit more potent than they said.
Yes, exactly. I don't get it. But I guess they've been also just drugging her food. I don't understand how Lucien's power, like, he must have had an apple. I don't understand how his magic isn't coming back at all.
Yeah. He's useless.
Right? Maybe he just has magic and he's just like, we'll just walk. It's fun. Like, I don't want to get to our destination anyway. So, they get off this mountain that they were trekking through, and they're on, like, a giant ice-covered lake, and it sounds really creepy, because she says there are certain parts that, like, you look down and you can actually just, like, the ice is clear, so you can just see down into the depths of the water. So it does sound spooky.
But also cool.
Oh, yeah. I'm also like, how huge is this lake? Like,
oh, it must be gigantic.
Because they kind of talk about it like they're gonna be on this lake for days walking. And at some point, I would just stop and be like, I'm gonna wait for my magic. Like,
yeah, but they also can't stop on the lake.
Well, and they also can't stop right now because they assume that somebody is following them. But I would have stopped before that. Anyway. But they're, like, looking around because there's going to be nowhere to stay. But Lucien's kind of like, they'll melt some ice and, like, make a structure out of that to stay in the night. Like,
oh, yeah, they're going to make a little, like, ice house.
Exactly. So they're kind of looking around, and then behind them they see three figures, and they see one of them is Eris, and his hand is covered in fire, and he, like, as he's looking at them, like, puts his hand on the ice, and it starts to melt in, like, a path towards them, and they're like, oh fuck, because the water is, like, super deep, and this lake is vast and everywhere, so they are fucked. They obviously start to run, and then Lucien basically just yells out that they start staggering.
Oh, yeah, like,
zigzagging.
Zigzag, yeah. Like what you're supposed to do if someone's shooting at you or something like that. You gotta zigzag.
Because they're shooting arrows at them. So yeah, they're zigzagging, there's arrows being shot at them, and then the ice is still melting in, like, a path towards them, and then in front of them it's melting, so she's like, she starts throwing ice power out with her hands as she's, like, running forward to, like, kind of solidify their path ahead of them. Yeah, it's very smart, and, like, it's because she has a bit of the magic in this court. But then Eris appears in front of them, of course. So they're still running, but then they stop because Eris is there, and then one of the other brothers shoots an arrow at Feyre, and it, like, clips her ear and then skims her cheek, which sounds real shitty.
I thought it went the opposite way. Are you saying it went backwards and, like, got her in the ear and then the cheek? I was thinking it was got her in the cheek first. I thought
the other brothers were behind them still, so I thought it went ear then cheek.
Right.
But
makes sense.
I don't know. Anyway, and then she's, like, basically trying to dive out of the way, but another arrow gets her, like, through her forearm, which is vomit-inducing. Like, I hate it.
Can you imagine, like, something with that much force going all the way through your arm? It sounds so painful.
And she, like, ends up on the ground, and she fell while she was diving out of the way of the arrows, but, like, I would just fall on the ground and cry. But she immediately, just being honest, she immediately just, like, cracks the arrow and pulls it out of her arm, and, like, gross. But I'm also like, it makes sense because, like, she's Faye. She knows she'll heal quickly, so she needs to get it out of there so that she can heal. But I'm like,
I guess
I would not.
I was thinking like, no. I was thinking like, oh, if you take it out, you might bleed out. Like, because they always say, if something is in you, don't pull it out because it's keeping the blood in. But you're right. She's Faye. She'll heal. So yeah, get it out.
Yeah, it's just funny. So she's on the ground, and then she, like, gets two of her Illyrian knives, and, like, she gets back up, and she like starts running again, because obviously, what are you gonna do? But like she goes up with her like bright light and then starts to run, and she's panicking a bit, but I don't think she's panicking nearly enough.
Yes.
But Eris winnows in front of her and just like backhands her and then punches her in the stomach. And then he grabs her by the hair and starts dragging her back towards where they came from, back towards the Autumn Court direction, basically. And she can see that
like, just think, he's dragging her across the ice. Think about how damp she's getting and how uncomfortable that's gonna be.
She's so damp.
Like, there's nothing worse than being in damp clothes.
Yeah, Lucien's fighting the other two brothers. So Eris ends up putting like a gag of fire over her mouth, and then he like binds her wrists, ankles, and throat with fire. And she says that it's not hot, but it's like warm enough that she knows he can make it hot, and that would suck. She's kind of actually starting to full on panic now, and a group of sentries winnow in, and I'm assuming they're from the Autumn Court to like take them all back. But then a shadow slams into the ice, and it like cracks in all directions, and she just sees 7 red siphons, and it's Cassian.
Yay!
And his wings are like repaired and whole, and she's just like so happy about that too, because last time she saw him, he was fucked up.
Yeah, his wings were like shredded.
Then there's an impact behind them, and it's Azriel.
Yay!
And this is like one of those moments that like if they ever do a series, this is a scene that I want, and I know it's like the 3rd book, we may never get it, but like this is, I want to see this.
Yeah. All I can think of is like a slam, and then like whoever it is like standing up
superhero
and, like,
pose.
So menacing. Yes, superhero pose, super menacing, and like
yeah,
I'm mad.
I love it. Feyre starts to cry. Feyre, 100% Feyre, and
yeah, it's relief. She can
exactly.
relax now.
And Cassian takes out his sword, and he says, "I suggest you drop it." And then he like gives her a look, and she knows that he's like, "You know your training, like do something." So she she like twists and ends up like hitting Eris in the junk. And then as he's like bending forward, she like brings her arms up and like punches him in the nose and cracks his nose, which just sounds awesome.
Love it.
So she gets away, and Cassian goes to take on Eris. And Az goes to help Lucien, who is still fighting his 2 brothers. And the sentries are like firing arrows at them, but Azriel just has a shield up, so like they're just banging off and going nowhere anyway, which is good. Feyre uses her ice power to like get rid of the gag and the bindings. And she sees Cassian stab Eris in the stomach, and she knows killing these 3 won't be good if there is going to be a war against Hybern. Like, how is Autumn Court gonna align with them if they literally murder 3 of their sons in this moment? So Feyre yells, "Stop!" And Azriel and Cassian immediately obey, and she tells the like Autumn Court kids that they deserve to die, but she's sparing them. And then she removes her glamour that she's had on this whole time, which I think is literally just like on her arm. That's all the glamour is, isn't it? It's just like the markings on her arm that say that.
Yeah. But I think she was covering up both because the bargain tattoo was still
Yeah,
there,
yeah, yeah. I just mean, like,
right?
is it like with Tamlin when, like, he removed his glamour in the first book and he had more power?
Oh,
Like, is that
maybe.
what it is? Because she's a high lady, does she, like,
Yeah.
and it, like,
Oh,
does
could
it,
be.
like,
Mm.
um, yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna take it as that. And she tells them all that she's the high lady of the night court, and they are shook. One of them's even like, "There's no such thing as a high lady." Clearly there is. Fuck off. Yeah.
Yeah. She's right there.
And then she asks Cassian to take her home, and Cassian, like, picks her up. Azriel picks Lucien up, and they, like, start to fly away. And Cassian says he doesn't know which of the two is more uncomfortable, Azriel or Lucien than Sarah.
I know, it's funny because he's like carrying him like
Yeah.
damsel style.
Right, I want to see that too. And yeah, it's the first time that Feyre's ever heard Lucien's last name. I don't know if there's anything significant about it, but figured to throw it in. Cassian then says, like, "Hello, Feyre," and she hugs him tightly, and he says that he missed her too, and it's just kind of sweet. They get to the Night Court territory, and they land there, and Moore is, like, waiting there. So they were at the south part of the Winter Court, and now the border with Night is the north part of the Winter Court. So Feyre can, like, tell that Moore feels guilty that she didn't come help. But, like, Eris was there, so she didn't want to, like, see him, but also, like, she thought that if she was at the north, then maybe the Winter Court, I guess you probably feel somebody come in through, like, there's definitely some type of alarm system that would let them know that she's there, is kind of what it seems like. Anyway, she's like, was hoping that her standing there would stop them from looking in the south and finding Feyre, because, like, any court would try and get their hands on her.
Yeah, for
but yeah,
sure.
So back to what you were saying earlier, I think that during the fight, the Bond came back with Rhys, and she just showed him where she was. She, like, didn't have her mental block up, so he was able to just see where she was.
Yes.
So they go to the townhouse in Valeris, and Lucien is surprised to hear children in the streets, because obviously he thinks of the Night Court as this, like, torturous, awful place. He's just like, why can I hear kids laughing? Like, what the fuck is going on?
Like, did he think that children didn't exist? Like,
yeah, it's interesting. And then Amryn shows up, and she says that they have a new pet. And Lucien looks terrified of her, so we're assuming he's heard about her. But then he bows deeply, and Feyre introduces them. So, like, he's respectful of Amryn, which is probably a good thing. Yeah.
At least. She's terrified.
Lucien asks, like, what this place is, and Feyre says it's her home. It's Valeris, the city of Starlight. And then he asks if she's, like, is she really the High Lady of the Night Court? And dramatic entrance, a voice behind her says, "Indeed she is." And she looks back at Rhys, and, like, this is when she kind of breaks. She, like, sinks to her knees, and, like, I think she says she makes a broken sound comes out of her. He sinks in front of her, calls her my love, and kisses her, and then he tells everybody to find somewhere else to be. And he winnows Feyre upstairs. But Feyre looks back and sees Moore grab Lucien's hand and winnow away. So, like, everybody does leave.
Giving
Yeah.
them some
Um,
privacy.
she asks if he wants to go over what happened in the Spring Court, and he says no. And it's kind of a callback to like every time that she went to the Night Court, when she came back, Tamlin would immediately grill her about what happened and try to get information about Rhys. So it's another moment where they're just trying to show the difference between the two of them. He says he has other things he'd rather do first, which is funny.
But like, but it just proves how awful Tamlin is. Like, he obviously didn't miss her that
Yeah,
much while she was gone for a week. If the first thing that he wants to do is grill her about information, like, it's not, no, I want to celebrate that you're back out of my enemy's clutches. You know what I mean? Whereas Rhys is like, no,
yeah.
I love you. I want
And
to
I
spend
think
time with you.
Tamlin, his priority mainly is feeling weak, and like that made him feel weak, so now he wants an upper hand. Like that's more important to him than Feyre, which obviously isn't good. Um, but it just shows like who he is as a person. So Rhys basically like just slides her to the floor instead of like the bed or anything, and um, he says that when the bond went dark, he thought the worst, and like he thought that she had died, which makes sense because that's probably what would happen if he died. So he went to the Spring Court, but he couldn't find her trail. And she tells him about the Fey vein that was put into her food, and that like he's like, so you killed them, and she just says yes. So she killed the twins. And then he says whatever she did worked. Like Tamlin's sentries abandoned him, and his people hate him now that she's gone. Apparently, like the
Ha!
tithe was 2 days ago or something, and only half of the people even showed up to give their taxes. So like, not good for Tamlin. Um,
Well, and he doesn't have soldiers. If all the sentries like hate his guts, he probably doesn't even have
exactly.
soldiers to enforce.
So Jurian apparently went back to Hybern, and Ianthe is in her temple praying and isn't leaving. So she's like secluded herself. Right?
Good.
Rhys says that Cassian showed him what happened on the ice, and that Eris will die soon. Will he die soon? Or will he be a huge part of 2 more books? I actually like him, and I want more of his story, but
He's too two-faced for me. Like, I find that he's playing both sides too hard.
yeah, I get that. But I'm also like, there's just so much more to him. I need something from his point of view because I don't know what's happening. Because like, I just think that we can't really get into it without. But anyway, we'll get more into him later. Um, she. Oh yeah. And Reese has been like, you announced that you were High Lady, and she was like, yeah. And he was like, I wanted to scream that from the mountaintops. Like I wanted to tell people. And she's like, yeah, it's cute. And she's like, you still can.
Aww.
Like it was only a few hours ago. Like probably not even, only like 30 minutes ago. You can go
Yeah.
scream it if you want and like take the credit for announcing it. Then she asks where her sisters are, and he says that like they're at the House of Wind and they're safe, and he offers to take her there. And she like this is a really big deal for her because like he loves her, they are mates, and he could easily like just be self-centered and be about what he needs and like her, and
Yeah.
he's like actually willing to overlook that based on like what she needs, which is good.
Yes.
But she doesn't really want to see her sisters yet. She wants to like wait until she steadies herself enough to face them. She's just happy enough knowing that they're safe. She asks him where he was, because he was, I quote, far away. And he tells her he was spying at the Queen's palace in the human world, the human queens. And she's kind of annoyed that he went alone. But he's like, it's just silent there, and he doesn't understand why. Like, there's no armies gathering, like, nothing is happening, and they haven't heard from them, so they're just like, what is going on? They both lower their mental shields, and his mind snuggles hers. Yeah.
Oh, mind snuggle.
Then he kisses her and tells her he missed her, and then he offers for her to either take a bath or for him to lick her clean. And I get what he's saying, but like, he then says that she has blood on her and not just her own. I'm like, you're gonna lick somebody else's blood off of her?
But also, like, does he have a cat's tongue? Like, how would... It wouldn't clean. Like, you licking somebody would not clean them. Unless you have a cat's tongue. That's all
she
rough.
even says, like, as much as she'd like to see him try to lick a week worth of blood, sweat, and dirt off of her, she's gonna get a bath.
I thought they have showers, don't they?
I was thinking the same thing, but I don't think so. I don't think they do have showers.
Oh, I thought they did, but okay.
Yeah, I don't think so. She kind of worries that she's going to need more than one bath because she is filthy. And this is like, ew, Reese, ew. You're going to lick that off. Like, we're just reiterating this so many times how gross she is. But he snaps his finger and magics like all of the dirt off of her. And she's kind of like, what's the point of ever bathing? And he's like, the essence of the dirt still remains. It's just like the physical dirt, it's gone. And she even says that like she feels like her skin feels oily and grimy. So she strips and like kind of puts on a bit of a show for him while she does it. And she says it's too bad that two can't fit in the tub. And he says he's going to fix that tomorrow. Which I kind of love.
Why can't he just fix it
I'm like,
now?
just snap your fingers, get a new tub. I don't understand. What's magic? Just elongate it.
Yeah.
Engorgio. So she gets in the tub and cleans herself, and he just stands there and watches the whole thing. When she gets out, she like completely dries off. She sits down and brushes out her tangled hair. And he's literally just standing there the whole time, just like watching her. And
Lovely.
and she just says, all clean. And he takes her hand and guides her to the bedroom. And like, she's walking behind him and just looking at his ass, and all she can think is how she's going to devour him. I'm here for it.
Yeah, let's get to the devouring.
So she drops her towel and says she's ready for ravishing. And he says he doesn't know where to start. And then he starts to like describe his options with like one finger trailing along her body. And it's like, it's pretty hot. Like he starts with, like, he circles around each breast, and then he goes up to her mouth, and then he puts his finger in her mouth, and then he goes down.
Putting his finger in her mouth? That's just a bit, like, weird.
No, it's like, it's a common thing, though. Like, she, like, just sucks on it a bit, and it's like, this could be a penis, but it's not.
Sure.
I think that's like why it's so common, but He like gets to her stomach and he draws patterns on her stomach. And then he says, or you can start here. And he like runs a finger through her and then starts circling her clit. And then he says, we're here. And he puts a finger inside of her. So
Yikes.
we're getting a lot. And she's just like dying. She's just like, I need you now, fuck off. So he asks her where he should start. And she puts his hand on her heart and says, you're mine. Knowing that it'll like snap him out of the game because he'll get like feral and just go after her. Yeah.
Go for it. Yeah.
And he vanishes his clothes, which is like a power move, and I love it.
Where do they go?
They're in the between, I guess. Yeah. Why have a closet at all?
Like, what if he can't have those clothes? Yeah, what if he can't have those clothes anymore? Like, what if he can no longer find them in the in-between?
Yeah. Does each person have their own in-between?
Or is it like a room of requirements situation?
Yeah. And why ever, like, can somebody else go in there and take his clothes? That'd be funny.
I feel like we're thinking way too much about this.
We are, but I'm like, the next time that somebody magics clothes onto them, is it just going to be this set of clothes, no matter who they are? I love it. Anyway, so they kiss, and it's a wild and claiming kiss, and she is home. And they're skin to skin now, obviously, and they're touching each other everywhere, and his wings appear behind him, and then, like, settle in. Because he's with her, he's comfortable, and like so he lets his wings out because of that, basically. And he like guides her back to the bed, and she climbs on, and he kind of hesitates, and I feel like it's a bit of a moment to like make sure that she is good with how fast this is going, like to make sure that she's like mentally and physically ready to like have sex, that she doesn't need anything else before they just go ahead and have sex.
Well, I feel like too that he still doesn't know what she had to do.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So
it's very respectful, and I appreciate that moment that he gives her. So she says his name, and she kind of like is obviously looking at him, and she notices his tattoos, and she thinks of his promise to kneel for no one but his crown, and now for her. And he is hers, and she kind of like sends those feelings and that down the bond, and like her desperation for him right now in the bond. And he climbs on top of her, and he holds her hand and says, "You're mine too." And
aww.
Yeah, it's sweet. It's a sweet moment. I think they need this. And then he pushes inside of her, and she feels like she could die, and she like, I'm pretty she like lets out a sob. And he says never again, and they obviously have sex, and the mating bond gets brighter and clearer while they're having sex, and she comes, and her skin glows, and the like mating bond is super bright and clear, and then she runs a finger down his wings where he's sensitive, and then he comes too, and they just like hold each other afterwards and are like snuggling and getting everything they need. And then he tells her he missed her, and not just the sex, but laughing and talking and being friends. And she says she knows, and she whispers never again.
Aww.
It's sweet. It's a sweet back together moment. I do like it.
Yeah. So yeah, busy week this week. I feel like this episode has been quite long.
Yes, it has.
But yeah, I'm loving it. I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about next week too.
Yeah, me too. Um, and it's like there's 5 weeks and this much happened in 1 week. It's kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But that wraps it up for this week. If you want to get in touch with us and share your thoughts on anything you heard in our episodes, or if you have any book suggestions, you can email us at coffeeandcoread@gmail.com, and be sure to check us out on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at coffeeandcoread.
So next week, we'll be reading chapters 15 to 26 of A Court of Wings and Ruin. So make sure to follow along. And if you're enjoying our little chats, don't forget to follow, rate, and review wherever you find content. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you on the next page.